Καλησπέρα σας. Καλώς ορίσατε στην δεύτερη μέρα των διαλόγων της Νησύρου. Ελπίζουμε να απολαύσετε το πρωινό σας στο όμορφο νησί.
So we're starting the second day of the Nisyros Dialogues 2025. I hope you've enjoyed your day so far. And we hope that we're about to begin. We hope we're going to be on time. And I kindly ask Mr. Manolis Kostidis, our colleague, who is going to have a discussion, a dialogue rather, in the first panel with Ms. Eleni Kondili and the Ambassador Dimitris Paraskevopoulos. Good afternoon. This is the second day. The Eastern Mediterranean, the vortex of geopolitical changes are subject, but first of all, I'd like to start with you so that you can paint a picture for us, a picture of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East that have been the birthplaces of main cultures. Despite the innumerable wars and conflicts in the broad region, the region has survived, this culture rather, these cultures have survived all this and the collaboration between cultures and religions. And a key question, a major question that I have in mind is how can we maintain this collaboration among cultures in the future, because we've got lots of conflicts. How can we take the example of the past? Thank you very much for your question. But first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Michalos, because thanks to him and his team we're here today. So thank you, Mr. Michalos, and your team, and my two interlocutors here. Now, for something to survive, it has to exist. And I believe that it has existed so far. There has been contact among cultures. This is something that dates back to the past, the furthest past. What we know is that since there's been history, there's been writing, and writing started out in Mesopotamia. Then it moved to the west, to the Mediterranean, and gradually it became that we had the first alphabet with 30 symbols. You do realize the difference. So then we have the Greek world, the ancient Greek world, where we had a real explosion, because it added something unique to the alphabet, making it easy. Until then, the alphabet, even in the Arabs, there were only consonants. Imagine my name, Eleni. You would only see the consonants of my name, L-N, alone. So the Greek writing added the vowels, and then this alphabet was spread around the Mediterranean, and the Greek world was the first that wrote anything, everything and anything in a transparent and reasonable manner. So we have got Homer, we have got Aesopus, Rekman, myths, traditions that are common, that were written in the Greek language. Then, gradually, Greek things that were Greek, that came from the transparency of writing, were loaned to the Eastern world, like the word philosophy that comes from the word, from the fact that the Greek writing is democratic and transparent, This is where philosophy was born, and then philosophy, like in French and German, in English, and in all other languages of Greek origins. The same is true for the Eastern languages, in the Arab languages. Then the word music, again, same. So we've got lots of common things in common rather, with lots of loans and counter loans. And of course, it's not only us that lend, they lend us as well. So the contact among cultures bring peoples together, and this is how they survive. Another example, starting from the language again, it's a medical text talking about, first of all, about the key issue of wars. In wars, the best way to die was bleed to death. Greek medicines discovered a powder that could dry out the wound. And the Arabs took this powder, and in Greek it was called pligion. And then they called it elixir. Then the Arabs loaned this to the French, elixir, and we also took that word and we turned it into the word elixirion. So there are a lot of elements that are timeless, that leave behind them a depot of peace and coexistence. Ambassador, we're at a time where there is interculturality in the area, the region. We see wars, we see differences, we see conflicts. Perhaps in order to, should we find new ways to collaborate in this area, or should we take the example of the past? My personal concern as a journalist and as a person is that the different religions is a reason why we reach this level of conflict. Thank you. The president of the foundation, I'd like to thank him for honoring me with this invitation, with inviting me rather the past 4 years to these dialogues that have been enriched, have been upgraded, and they're always sealed with the fact that this is an emotional initiative and a tribute, active tribute to the homeland. Mr. Kostidis, I have a twofold answer. I will start with the culture. In 2001, when the prospect of globalization was on the rise, overwhelmingly, and there was the priority of economic growth alone, nothing else. A very interesting book was published by Maurice Harrison, and Haddington also wrote in that book. That's it. The title was Culture Matters. It was iconoclastic, but very right. Back then, the theory was, which was unsuccessfully put in practice, that by applying specific practices and economic methods, you have the same economic growth results around the world, in any part of the world, which was a major mistake, which was proved both in the economic and political terms. In the book, it writes that mother is culture and children are the institutions. But a determining factor for cultures is religion, what you mentioned. And the matrix of culture which is the
Είναι
ancient
και ο τόπος
Mediterranean Middle East,
ανάδειξης
is
των τριών
the
μονοθεϊστικών
place
θρησκειών.
where the three monotheistic religions
Οι
were
τρεις
born.
μονοθεϊστικές θρησκείες,
Three
λιγότερο περισσότερο
monotheistic
κάθε μία,
religions, more or
έχουν ως
less, each one of them,
εγγενές προσδιοριστικό
have
στοιχείο
as an inherent
μία
attribute
απολυτότητα, να το πούμε ομαλά, που έχει
an
κατά καιρούς
absolute
ισχυρές εκφάνσεις και άσχημες. Από τη
approach,
σφαγή
which has
των
got
σταυροφόρων στην πρώτη σταυροφορία
occasionally
στην Ιερουσαλήμ
atrocious
μέχρι τις
manifestations from the
τζιχαντιστές σήμερα
slaughter
εδώ και εκεί.
in the Middle
Όμως
East
παρόλα αυτά,
by the
μέχρι πριν 25 με 30 χρόνια, η
by
διαπολιτισμικότητα
the Templars
στην
all the
ευρύτερη
way
αυτή
to the
περιοχή είχε
jihad these
επιβιώσει.
days. But interculturality had survived in all
Άλλαξε
these centuries. What
δύο
has changed
πράγματα,
meanwhile?
αρνητικοί
Well, two
παράγοντες,
things
κατά τη δική μου
changed, two
εκτίμηση, αν
negative
επιτρέπετε. Το πρώτο είναι
factors.
η
First,
ακραία και άσχημη χρησιμοποίηση των
extreme and poor
θρησκειών παύλα
use of
πολιτισμών, γιατί είναι
religions
αλληλένδετα τα
dash
στοιχεία σε αυτή
cultures,
την
because
περιοχή
these two
περισσότερο
are
από
strictly
οπουδήποτε
linked
αλλού.
in this area, in this part of the world, more
Εσωτερικά,
than anywhere else,
αλλά και
internally,
παρεμβάσεις
as well as
εξωτερικές.
interventions,
Να
external
μην μιλήσω
interventions,
τα
externalities.
του οίκου μας, δηλαδή της
In
Δύσης.
our case, in the
Οι τρεις
West,
παρεμβάσεις σας αναφέρω μόνο
the
αυτές
three
στο Ιράκ, στη
interventions,
Συρία
Iraq,
και
in
στη
Iraq,
Λιβύη,
Syria,
τις
and in
συνέπειες τις
Libya,
οποίες έχουν δημιουργήσει.
have had the
Τα
effects
ζήσαμε
that
και
we
υπηρεσιακά
have
και
all
πολιτικά
witnessed.
και
We've seen
συνεχίζουμε
them
με αυτά τα
in terms
πράγματα.
of,
Λοιπόν,
we've seen them in all these years.
υπάρχει πολύ μεγάλη υποχώρηση, για να το πούμε έτσι διπλωματικά, της διαπολιτισμικότητας, το οποίο δεν είναι
Interculturality has
μόνο
subsided
μια
significantly.
καταστροφή
And this is
ιστορικών
not
διαστάσεων,
only a
γιατί
disaster of
είναι η
historic
περιοχή αυτή που
proportions,
είναι και
because
γιατί η
it is this
διαπολιτισμικότητα
region, and because
διασφαλίζει την ανεκτικότητα και τελικά την
interculturality
ειρήνη και την
ensures
ασφάλεια.
tolerance and therefore
Αλλά
peace and security.
ανατρέπεται και γεωπολιτικά η
But
περιοχή, για το οποίο θα συζητήσουμε
there is a lot
αργότερα.
of the geopolitics of the region are upset as well. Geopolitics of the region are upset. We'll discuss this. Okay, being in Nisyros, being in Greece, an Orthodox, Christian Orthodox country, religious diplomacy, can it be helpful? How can Greece approach these areas? We're talking about interculturality, the different cultures, so we need a rapprochement. How can we achieve this? This question is quite challenging. I hope that you would ask this, Mr. Paraskevopoulos. I'll tell you what I believe about this thorny issue. These three religions have been going next to each other for many years. Judaism gave birth to Christianism, and then Islam was born in the 7th century AD in this same area of the world, and the first Muslims were Christians. How was it imposed? And the first Christians were Jews. Exactly. Now, the way things rolled out is as follows. We see that either using violence or peacefully, we have the imposition of Islam. Then we see that the religions acquired a sort of state-like character. After Theodosius the Great, Byzantium became purely Christianic and Christian, and in Islam, the state and religion go hand in hand. In the beginning, there were wars, the first and the second siege of the Istanbul of Constantinople, and then the Arabs stopped sieging the city. But because there were the religions, people wanted to defend themselves, and the Christians are against Islam, and the Islam against Christianity. Okay, fair enough, but the first translation of Quran took place in the 8th century AD. So the Quran was written in the 7th century, in the 8th century it was translated in Greek. It might be for the purpose of polemics, but there are people who can read it in their own language and appreciate it. We see a rise of Islam back then, but not fanatic Islam. with the Islam that it has with astronomy, physics, science. Then later on, Islam becomes more aggressive. How can we go back to that time? At the beginning, the origin of Islam. How can we eliminate this dark era?
Obscurantism appears in history in a sporadic manner. I believe the same moment both in Middle East and Europe. This happens, in my humble opinion, during the 13th century. The Christians, under the pretext of the crusade, did what they did. The Fourth Crusade concerns the fall of Constantinople, and the First Crusade, as Mr. Paraskevopoulos said, was a very extreme act in Jerusalem. From the 13th century onwards, there are moments of complete darkness. And in Islam, there are philosophers that are chased in prisons. Let's not forget Averroes, which was at the western part of Islam. One might think that things were more progressive there. Little by little, instead of religion as religion, we have people becoming Muslims, and one start attacking the other. The Mughals arrive in Damascus, the 14th century. The Muslims believe that they will be protected by their temples, and they all die. Of course, this does not mean that these are the only things that exist. Till the 20th century, there are moments of coexistence of mutual influence. Well, I'm not able to explain all this. My question is for the ambassador, just to shed light on the future. The religious diplomacy, and my question mainly concerns Greece, since there are many Christians in Syria and Egypt and the Middle East, and they have survived for centuries. My question is whether this is a reason why Greece and Europe should practice more religious diplomacy. We had a message of the Patriarchate Bartholomew. We are in an island that belongs to the Ecumenical Patriarchate. What is, in your opinion, the future? How can we have an intervention in the wider area? Because you know that in the wider area, there are countries that are longing for the past. They follow a sort of diplomacy, and my question is, what can Greece and Europe can do? Mr. Kostidis, have you read the book, The Nostalgia of the Imperium?
Χρειάζεται μία, κατά την προσωπική μου γνώμη,
In my opinion,
χρειάζεται μία ενεργοποίηση του διεθνούς παράγοντα. Δεν
we
αρκεί
need
μία
to
χώρα.
activate
Βεβαίως,
the international factor. One country is
πιστεύω
not
ότι
enough.
θα πρέπει να
No
έχει
doubt,
μία
Greece
την
should have
δέουσα, για να μην υπερβάλλουμε, αλλά να
the
μην
due
εκμηδενίζουμε κιόλας. Τη δέουσα ενεργό δράση
active
με επικοινωνία, με
role
παρακολούθηση, με
through
συνεργασίες στις συγκεκριμένες
communication,
περιοχές. Κάτι
monitoring
που
of
δεν είναι
certain
γνωστό
areas.
είναι η
Something
πίεση
that
που δέχονται
we do not know
όχι
concerns
μόνο
the pressure
επιτοπίως, αλλά γενικότερα
exerted not only
τα πατριαρχία
locally but
των Ιεροσολύμων
generally
και της
upon the
Αλεξανδρίας.
patriarchates of Jerusalem and Alexandria
Το Πατριαρχείο
by another
Ιεροσολύμου και
country.
όχι μόνο από εκεί.
The
Το
Patriarchate of
Αλεξανδρίας, ναι.
Jerusalem, and not only the
Το
and
Αντιοχίας
also the
έχει
Patriarchate of
απορροφηθεί,
Alexandria.
είναι αλλού,
That
αλλά
of
δεν πάβει να είναι
Antiochia has been
έστω
absorbed, it is
αραβορθόδοξο.
elsewhere, but in any case, it's Arab
Η Ελλάδα
Orthodox.
πρέπει να συγκροτήσει
Greece
και
should
Οι αγαπητοί και σεβαστοί συνάδελφοι
set
και
up.
φίλοι που είναι εδώ,
And the dear
ο ένας είναι
friends
αρχαιότερος
present
από μένα,
here,
ο άλλος είναι
one
νεότερος.
is older than me,
Γνωρίζουμε
the
πολύ
other
καλά
one
όλοι
is
ότι
younger. We all know
δεν είχαμε ποτέ ενεργό
that we have never had
εκκλησιαστική πολιτική. Όχι για να πάμε να
an
πούμε στα
active
πατριαρχία τι θα κάνεις και δεν θα κάνεις.
religious policy,
Μια
not to
συνεργασία με
dictate
μια
to the
στήριξη.
patriarchates what they are supposed to do.
Λοιπόν,
That is
αυτό ήταν
an
κάτι
active
που
support.
ομολογώ
This is
μας είναι
something
ακατανόητο και
that
κάνοντας μια αναδρομή υπηρεσιακή
sincerely
στα
we do
χρόνια
not
τα 35 και
understand.
βάλε που
And if I
υπηρετήσαμε.
review
Δεν λέω
my
ότι θα είχαμε αλλάξει
35
τα πράγματα,
years as a
αλλά
diplomat, I
χρειάζεται να
can say
συγκροτηθεί
that I don't
πραγματικά
think that
μια
things
θρησκευτική
might have
πολιτική με
changed,
τις
but
δέουσες
in my
παραμέτρους που
opinion,
μπορούμε, γιατί
I
ξέρουμε τι
believe
περιέχει.
we should
Είναι
articulate
3.000
a
χρόνια
religious
συνύπαρξη,
policy. We've had
δύσκολη, γόνιμη,
3,000 years
παραγωγική,
of
καταστροφική, ξέρουμε
coexistence,
τι περιέχει.
difficult,
Τώρα,
destructive,
φυσικά αυτό δεν αρκεί.
productive. Of course, this is
Εγώ
not
πιστεύω
enough.
ότι θα πρέπει να
I believe
αναλυθεί
that
μία
we
προσπάθεια
should
γιατί και
analyze
ιστορικά
an
και
effort
πολιτισμικά
because both
ο
historically and
πολιτισμικός
culturally,
πλουραλισμός που
the
υπάρχει και γεννήθηκε σε αυτή
cultural
την περιοχή
pluralism
είναι
was born
καθοριστικός
in this region,
για την
and it
πολιτισμική
plays a
εξέλιξη τριών υπήρων.
decisive role
Έτσι,
for
δεν
the
είναι κάτι
cultural
το οποίο
growth
έμεινε εκεί.
of
Και όχι
three
μόνο ως θρησκείες.
continents. It is not something that simply stayed
Θα
there
πρέπει
as a
να γίνουν
religion.
συγκροτισμένες
In
προσπάθειες
my opinion,
από
we
τη
should
διεθνή κοινότητα. Και δεν λέω
carry
ευχολόγια,
out
γιατί όταν λέμε
coordinated
διεθνής
efforts,
κοινότητα
and this is
ξέρουμε
not
ότι
wishful
τα
thinking.
ψηφίσματα του
When
ΙΕ δεν
we talk
εφαρμόζονται
about
κτλ. Αλλά
international
υπάρχει
community, we
ανάγκη να
are well aware
προστατευτεί
of the
αυτό που είναι
fact
εκεί, ό,τι έχει
that
μείνει.
the United
Και
Nations
μάλιστα upon
resolutions are not
verification, να
being
αναλάβουν
implemented. And of
δεσμεύσεις
course,
τα
upon
κράτη της
verification,
περιοχής, τα οποία έχουν την
the
ευθύνη
countries of
και
the
να
area
μιλήσουμε
should
καθαρά,
commit
κοιτάξτε στη Συρία τι
themselves,
έγινε, αυτός που είναι
and
τώρα δεν ξέρω
they
πόσο θα
should be
μείνει
told,
αυτός ο
well,
άνθρωπος
have a
εκεί,
look what happened in
ούτε καν
Syria.
κατεδίκασε επωνύμως αυτό το οποίο έγινε. Τα
He
κράτη
did
της
not
περιοχής να
condemn
δεσμευθούν
what
upon
happened.
verification
The
από τον διεθνή παράγοντα
countries of the region
ότι
should commit
προστατεύουν
themselves in front of the
και
international
υποστηρίζουν την
body that they
ανεκτικότητα
protect
και
and they
επομένως την ύπαρξη και
support
επιβίωση των
tolerability, and
διαφορετικών
as a
πολιτισμικών
result,
κοινοτήτων.
the existence of various
Είναι εφικτό
cultural
αυτό. Βεβαίως
communities.
είναι εφικτό.
Do you think
Όλα
this
είναι
is
εφικτά.
feasible? Of course it is feasible.
Όλα είναι
Everything
εφικτά.
is
Αν
feasible.
κάνετε ένα σκάνινγκ στο
Everything is
παρελθόν
feasible
και
if
δείτε
you have a look at the
ίσως
past, and
ακραία
you
παραδείγματα αυτά.
probably
Πώς
these are
κρατήθηκε
extreme
αν δεν
results.
υπήρχε
If
στρατηγική
you
προοπτικής.
consider
Πώς
how
κρατήθηκε ελεύθερο το Αφγανιστάν για ένα διάστημα,
Afghanistan
που
for a
δεν σε
certain
στρατό.
period was
Πώς
free,
κρατήθηκε το Βερολίνο
was kept free, or Berlin
ελεύθερο, περικυκλωμένο
was
από το Σοβιετικό στρατό.
free,
Μιλάμε
though
για πολιτικά,
surrounded by the
βαριά
Soviet
πολιτικά πράγματα.
army. These
Αλλά
are
πρέπει να
major
αναλυθεί
political
η πολιτισμική
facts, but
προτεραιότητα της
we
περιοχής
should
και να προστατευτεί.
showcase
Το
the
δεύτερο είναι να γίνει
cultural
με
priority
την
of the area, and
ενίσχυση
we should protect it. Then
κρατών
second, it should
κυρίως
be made
αραβικών
with the support
που έχουν μεγάλη
mainly
ισχύ,
Arab
όπως είναι η
states,
Σαουδική
which
Αραβία
are
και οι χώρες της
very
Χερσονήσου. Να
strong,
γίνει
Saudi
ένας
Arabia,
ενεργός διάλογος και να
the
βοηθήσουμε την
peninsula countries.
επαναπροσέγγιση
An
των
active
κοινοτήτων
dialogue
αυτών.
should be
Μπορεί
conducted,
να γίνει
and
αυτό.
we should
Υπάρχουν
support
και
the
ιδρύματα
reapproaching of these
όπως
regions.
το
There are
ΚΑΙΣ,
various
πώς λέγεται, είναι
foundations.
Σαουδική Αραβία, Αυστρία. Μπορούν να
There's
ενεργοποιηθούν
a
και
foundation
να
because
κάνουν
between Saudi
on the
Arabia
field
and
που λέμε.
Austria, they might become
Έχει
more
καθοριστική
active
σημασία για την ειρήνη
and
και ασφάλεια της περιοχής.
do something on the field, because this
Και να πούμε
has
κάτι
decisive
τελευταίο,
importance for peace and security in the
επειδή
area.
η
Let me add
παγκοσμιοποίηση
something.
ερμηνεύεται ή στοχεύει, δεν ξέρω,
The
υπάρχουν διάφορες θεωρίες, δεν
globalization
σας πάρω
is
εδώ,
interpreted
σε
or
μια
is aiming
ομογενοποίηση
at to a
που
homogenization, according to certain
διάφοροι
theories,
κατηγορούν
of
δεν θα έχεις
course.
πατρίδα, δεν θα έχεις θρησκεία κτλ. Δεν
There are
πιστεύω ότι
those
έτσι
who
τοποθετούν
say
τα
that you
πράγματα.
will have no religion,
Θυμάμαι
you will
μια
have
φράση ενός
no
Γερμανού
homeland.
συναδέλφου που
I
μου
do
είχε
not agree.
πει
I
στα
remember what a
νιάτα μου.
German colleague told me when I was young. He
Difference
said,
and exception is a
difference
virtue.
and exception is a
Με τη
virtue.
διαφοροποίηση γίνεται, αν το πάμε από την άλλη πλευρά, και ο
Through
διαλεκτικός ειρισμός. Θέση, αντίθεση, σύνθεση. Μπορούν να
we
ισοπεδωθούν όλα
have
τα πράγματα.
the
Και γι' αυτό το
dialectic
λόγο έχει σημασία
materialism.
εκεί που είναι η κοιτίδα του
What
πολιτισμού,
is important
του
is
ευρύτερου
there where
πολιτισμού
the
τριών
cradle
υπήρων.
of
Έτσι. Να
civilization is of
διατηρηθεί
three
και να
continents,
προστατευτεί για να
to do
επιβιώσει.
something to protect the area so that it will be survived. This is my last question.
Στον αραβικό κόσμο,
In
ποια
the
είναι η
Arab
χώρα που
world,
αυτή τη στιγμή έχει τη μεγαλύτερη
which
επιρροή?
is the country which is the most influential country, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, which had more influence and which still has. Egypt has always been very influential, was always the exception. Egypt is an Arab democracy, and the history of ancient Egypt is much longer than the Arab presence there. This means that any moment we see the history of Egypt, we will realize that it is not the same with the history of the rest of Africa. So this is very important. But does only policy has a role to play in this field? Economy is very important as well. We have many migrants in Greece, and many of them are in Egypt, from Egypt, and this does not mean that Egypt is not going through the best of its times. Let's think of Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, which... So, what about Europe? Which country should Europe approach in order to have this interculturality? They will start from the easier state. Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, this is a very important partner in a wider geographic area of the United States. Qatar is a neighboring country, and since they are very strong in Islam, since there are a lot of pilgrimage monuments, if Saudi Arabia wants, it can cooperate and give an order and, of course, channel money, funds. Would you like to add something? Let me say that the Gulf countries try to raise some objections vis-à-vis Saudi Arabia, and they are very combative, let's say, culturally speaking. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον κύριο Κωστίδη, την κυρία
Thank
Κονδύλη και
you
ασφαλώς τον
very
κύριο
much, Mr.
Παρασκευόπουλο. Αλλά θα ήθελα να
Konstidis, Mrs.
δώσουμε ειδικά τα
Kondili,
εύσημα
Mr.
για αυτή την θεματική ενότητα
Paraskevopoulos,
που
but
συζητήθηκε που αφορά
I
την
would like
διαπολιτισμικότητα
to pay
στην κυρία
tribute
Κλέια
to
Σιουτζόγλου, η οποία είναι
Mrs.
σύμβουλος
Kleya
πολιτισμού, ιστορικός τέχνης και
Soujoglu,
συγγραφέας
who is
εκδόσεων αρχαίας και
a
σύγχρονης τέχνης,
counselor
η οποία
of
τελευταία στιγμή ακύρωσε και δεν μπόρεσε να
culture.
είναι σήμερα μαζί μας, αλλά την ευχαριστούμε
Unfortunately,
πολύ για
due
την
to
ιδέα
previous
της.
engagement,
Λοιπόν, καλώ τώρα στο βήμα
she
τον καλό
has not
συνάδελφο
been
τον
able
κύριο
to attend
Αθανάσιο
this
Έλλης, ο
meeting.
οποίος θα
Now,
μιλήσει
I would
διαδικτυακά
like
με τον Υπουργό
to
Ψηφιακής
give the
Διακυβέρνησης, τον
floor
κύριο
to
Δημήτρη Κωστίδη.
Athanasios Ellis. He will have a dialogue with Mr. Papastergiou.
Ευχαριστώ. Παρότι συνήθως αν είναι διαδικτυακή συζήτηση αισθάνεσαι κάπως άβολα,
on an online dialogue, people may feel a bit awkward. Well, in this case, because this is the actual remit of the minister, maybe it's even better this way. I would like to welcome you to Nisyros and ask you, first of all, well, the ministry has just been renamed. AI was added to its name, actually. It was added to digital governance. Well, because we're an island, how will Greece benefit, insular Greece benefit, how will insular Greece benefit from digital governance and the AI? The use of AI. Good afternoon. Well, hello everyone. I would like to greet everyone who's got the pleasure and luck to be there, the fortune to be there. This year couldn't make it. I hope he didn't get emotional yesterday, as in all other years, but I believe that what he's doing for Nisyros is very important, what his foundation has been doing. Well, coming to my affairs, indeed, since last Monday, the name of the ministry is now digital governance and AI, and this showcases how much importance attached to the AI by the government and the Prime Minister himself. who is very knowledgeable of all developments regarding this matter, and he is always very targeted in his addresses. But it is very important that we're not going to be fragmenting potential and advances in various AI infrastructures and modules so that we can move in a more coordinated manner. Everything will go through, in terms of technology, will go through the ministry. Now, the same technology, I would say, technology itself knows no boundaries, so it can be disseminated around the country. It's the one that decentralizes possibilities and services, and this is the purpose of digital governance and AI. So, in other words, a citizen in Nisyros would do anything just as smoothly and easily as a citizen in Athens, have access to the entire digital information. Well, the minister mentioned his hometown Trikala as well, and so citizens in Trikala should be able to do the same. This is a program that is actually underway and will be completed during the summer, because we had realized there were regions in the city that had 200, 300, 400 digital services. Now there's only 10, 15, or 20. And so, in fact, with e-regions, what we're doing is we're homogenizing all these e-services so that all regions will have a minimum of 200 common digital services, because we had this extreme phenomenon where there was a procedure in Eastern Macedonia that would be totally different from the Peloponnese. So citizens were required to do different things in Macedonia than in the Peloponnese. So now all citizens will have the same experience around the country with regard to services. And going a bit further, one more thing that we're doing, is very interesting from geopolitical point of view, is the work that we're doing from our ministry in the space. It's something that will cover the entire country in order to have a better picture of weather phenomena, extreme weather conditions, farming and cultures. We will be able to see how we can correct mistakes like the ones that were committed in the case of Popekepe. All things will be resolved with methods and initiatives taken by the country. And another thing that is not known but is interesting is that Greece, when it comes to space, thanks to the micro-satellite policy that is being implemented, actually the first Greek manufactured micro-satellite was launched the other day. Next month, in two major telescopes that we have in Krioneri, Kriothea, and Aristakos, Greece alone will perform a marvelous experiment. We will try for the first time to use visual laser technology to communicate with a space device which is 300 million kilometers away, and this sounds far away. It's twice this distance between Earth and Sun. These are part of the space policy of the country that will help it, and these are policies that have been developing, and for the purpose of geopolitics and security, present high interest in recent years, have presented great interest in recent years. Now, something that has been discussed, Daedalus, because it sounds interesting, but people don't know. It is a hypercomputer that will be doing a lot. It's in Greece. It's in Lavrion, if I'm not wrong. It is property of the National Technical University. Can you tell us how this hypercomputer will work and function and what the benefits will be? I will add a geopolitical dimension to this. Throughout this period, around the world, we've been seeing that there are major achievements, major feats, and the technologies are developed around AI. So states that have good AI infrastructure are ahead in this competition compared to states that don't have. And Europe has been lagging behind in the development of such models and infrastructure. So Europe has been trying, is trying now to take advantage of the second wave of AI, developing infrastructures and its own models, because it's not only a matter of national sovereignty. If you depend on models that are not based on the European continent. So there is the Euro HPC. HPC means high performance computing. This is a Europe initiative. And these are the ideal computers for AI models. So Greece submitted the proposal for such a hypercomputer of 2,000 GPUs. In AI, we do not measure computer capacity in CPU, but GPU. So it is a system that will, in the next 10 months, will be one of the top 10 machines in the Europe, and it's one of these computers that will be able to run trillions of operations per second, but can run major applications. And this is in Greece, this computer is in Greece. So we can develop our own models. This is very important, and these are aimed to develop mostly various models and applications that will be useful to us. And it's the first of such computers because a week ago we submitted a second proposal for a second computer, AI computer, again worth 40-45 million. In Western Macedonia, we'll be doing different things, of course, and not all computers will be doing the same things. This is going to be based in Kozani, Western Macedonia, and will complement Daedalus through Pharos, the company. And we're going to operate this company together with the Growth Fund. So people who have the knowledge but don't have the computing power will, along with universities and research institutes, will use these resources free of charge, especially for startups and research institutes, so that this entire AI ecosystem to be based here in Greece and Europe, of course, with all the benefits that this will bring to Europe and Greece in terms of dominance in AI. Now, the energy needs of these infrastructures, can they be met? Because we're talking about different magnitudes of now. We're talking about huge energy needs. Yes, very interesting. Now, why have we been talking about energy requirements in Greece? If we add all the applications that have been submitted to in Greece for data centers or hypercomputers, AI hypercomputers, the figure is huge, more than 500 megawatts in computing infrastructures. Currently, Greece has 40 to 50 megawatts. So for the next couple of years, the proposals by hyperscalers or others are 10 times than the current capacities of the country. And if we continue like at this rate, we'll be talking about more than 1 gigawatt. Where we find all these resources? Well, Greece has got renewable energy in this race, and we've done quite well. Now we need to pay attention and be quite alert. And I'm sure that the Minister of Energy has shared similar thoughts. I don't know what he said yesterday. We have to see in time what we'll be able to do with energy storage and cross-border connections. Thanks to its location, geographic position, Greece being the southmost end of Europe along with Cyprus, it can host critical infrastructures for Europe and the Arab world to link our dialogue, with the previous dialogue, also Greece, Crete, and the rest of the country has got the interconnection cables. So if we combine the required energy along with storage, because we do have renewable energy sources, but we don't have them available when we actually need them. So if we have these storage capabilities and connection with the countries, this again becomes very interesting, especially geostrategically speaking, in terms of data security, and of course for those who want to have their data kept in a safe country, a secure country. Because you talked about security, I would like to conclude with security, because this is an issue discussed by people. Before we got to AI, with AI, things have become worse in terms of the concerns, I mean. Is the environment secure in terms of our personal data? People may be talking about their banking transactions at the government level, among governments, that is, but this is a different level. But in our everyday lives, there is some concern which has been intensified with the introduction of the AI. Should we be worried? I believe everybody was worried to an extent. But how difficult is this new environment? Well, we have to be reasonably concerned because the start of any attack and you need to feel secure and safe and say that you have got the best possible machines and hired the best experts. Cyber security is something that is a work in progress, just like cyber attacks. So with the National Authority of Cyber Security, we're taking measures along with the companies. It's actually the companies and businesses that need to feel the risk and the danger and understand the proportions of the disaster that will be brought upon us unless we take the measures that are necessary. And of course, in the past, there were attacks that caused problems to the safety and security of our services and authorities. So this is an ongoing race, but this is closely linked with what I said earlier with regard to national sovereignty in terms of data and cloud services. Lots of our services, the largest part of our services across Europe, are cloud-based, hence not based in Europe. And this needs to concern us at a time of crisis, or if the relationships with these other countries are upset. So we need to regain the sovereignty in cloud services, build our own modules and services, and use modules in non-critical infrastructures. This is something that concerns Europe and us, and of course the large companies that want to come to Europe and create a sense of safety and security for their European customers, given what has happened recently with the threats, bilateral threats, and the additional tariffs, etc., the threats for additional tariffs. So when it comes to cybersecurity, is Greece and Europe, there is a European directive that sets the guidelines for companies, especially the large ones, and for all those that are active in the supply chain. A major issue are the critical infrastructures in Spain. At the end of the day, it was not a matter of cybersecurity, but it could have been that. We don't need to refer to a couple of movies that could explain what could happen in case of a cyber attack against a country, on a country where the systems are vulnerable. So critical communications here, the fire brigade, the armed forces, the police forces have been running projects to secure the critical communications because these should never be affected. And unfortunately, this cannot be taken for granted. We've seen this in major disasters in Greece, especially in Thessaly. And what will happen tomorrow with the quantum computers, and how we will be able to fast and securely transmit crypto keys. There is an initiative, gov.com, where Europe is setting up 2 hubs for this safe sharing of the crypto keys of quantum computers. So when there will be future attacks, we will be ready in Europe to safeguard our infrastructures. A lot of things are underway. Some of these may be quite elaborate, but what is important is that there is knowledge, there is expertise and know-how, there is planning on the part of European Greece, and Greece actually is taking part on equal footing in all these initiatives, and we need to feel secure that we're doing everything in our power in order to ensure the communications as well as the data and systems. I hope everything will go well. Thank you very much, Minister. It was a pleasure of mine.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον κύριο Έλλης, αλλά και τον
Ναι.
Υπουργό Τεχνητής Νοημοσύνης και Ψηφιακής Διακυβέρνησης, τον κύριο Παπαστεργίου. Και καλώ τώρα στο βήμα τον κύριο Φάνη Παπαθανασίου με τον επίτιμο αρχηγό ΓΕΘΑ, πρώην Υπουργό Εθνικής Άμυνας, Ναύαρχο Ευάγγελο Αποστολάκη.
So, Vangelos Apostolakis, MP, former Minister of National Defense. Good evening. I'm Fanis Papathanasiou. I have the pleasure and the honor to continue with the Honorary Chief, Hellenic National Defense General Staff, former Minister of National Defense. Let me start with the journey of Mr. Gerapetritis to Libya. She was planning to go to Bengal. He will go to Tripoli as well, and he will conduct the first discussion on the delimitation of the maritime zones and the cooperation of the Libyan authorities in the field of migration flows. Thank you very much, Mr. Papathanasiou. Please let me start by thanking the Michalos Foundation for the kind invitation. I would like to congratulate the organizers for the dialogues, for the Nisyros Dialogues, and for the topics they have chosen, and to thank them for their kind hospitality. I believe that the Nisyros Dialogues have a future ahead. They will be so attractive that you'll have to organize them every single year. Okay, time is pressing, so let's come to brass tacks. Mr. Gerapetritis will visit Libya. No doubt he should see both sides, both governments, that of Eastern and of Western Libya. Will you please explain to us how things are there? We won't understand anything if we do not start from the very origins of the issue. Let's start from the past. Mr. Paraskevopoulos is aware of that. We had made a lot of efforts to decide exclusive zones with Libya. The stance of Libya was rather strange. They didn't want the islands. They didn't want the Ionian Islands, the islands close to Crete. Well, in any case, we have not been successful in communicating with them. In Libya, after the death of Muammar Gaddafi, things radically changed, and then a whole procedure started, and an effort was being made to reach an equilibrium in the country, a stability in the country. We have chosen a stance resulting from who was supporting whom. We were supporting Haftar, together with the Americans, the French, and probably the Russians. From the other side, we had Italy, the official position on the official government, the Turks, who were highly influential. And there lies the gist of the matter. We should realize that our relation with this country is very important. we did not follow the indicated pathway because we had good cooperation with Libya in the past. The Minister of Foreign Affairs arrives in Libya. In 2022, Mr. Dendias went to the airport. The Minister of Foreign Affairs was there. He has not been greeted. This has been very detrimental for our relations. We expulsed the president, the ambassador who later became a prime minister. Turkey is very influential in the area. At least the Western government had been supported, and it changed the whole flow, the whole course of the civil war, offering possibilities to the government, and they have enabled them. And they have enabled Haftar to have to control the situation, who had the military power. Do you have any influence upon Haftar? We used to have good relations because, as you know, many officers are trained in our schools, many officers from there. The head of the Navy had graduated from our own officers' school. We had a very good communication with him. They asked for some things. We gave them some of them. Well, in any case, we did not do our best. And now we are at the point that Haftar, who did not want to hear anything about the Turks, he started little by little turning his attention to Turkey. One of his sons collaborate with the Turks. He has visited sometimes Turkey, and we have been told that he has been convinced to support the Turkish-Libyan agreement. We know that this agreement is a violation of the international law. It has no rationale. It says that the state can define exclusive zone only in certain cases. We do not understand how Turkey supported this logic, this reasoning, thus resulting in the Turkish-Libyan memorandum. Then we have the issue of risk of this memorandum being approved. 4 plots have been given to the Turkish petroleum company for research. Well, Turkey has very close relations with Libya. They have reached another agreement. During the discussions here, it has been told that, of course, this memorandum is not legal, but the plots are at the right place. What about the median line? It seems that they respect this line. But of course, there is an agreement in part of the exclusive zone which has been agreed upon illegally. Let's agree upon something. My personal opinion is that the issue is approving research conducted by Turkish vessels in the area and not raise any objection on this research that is being conducted. The next part, which is equally important with Libya, is the issue of migration. Before we touch the issue of migration, can you see whether the vessels, the Turkish vessels are operating in the area? Do you see this scenario being repeated as it happened in Crete? As long as they do not enter areas that belong to the Western zone, the Western exclusive zone, And the issue concerns the Turkish and Libyan agreement. Our stance should be such so that all our allies will understand that Greece needs the support. There is an upheaval in the area. There is such an escalation, which is not very promising for the future. Let's now come to the issue of migration, and I will come back to this topic. You realize that there is a very important migration flow. This flow follows an upward trend. The situation is beyond any control. The infrastructures in Crete are not the best ones. We have issues with the various competent services. In any case, the government has taken a decision. Um, they, they said they want to do something radical to tackle the problem, but in reality, this decision has encountered many problems. If there is no agreement with Libya, no matter how many migrants we stop, we will continue having an issue. But if we needed to start a rescue operation, then other problems arise, and we have the full responsibility for these human beings. As a result, there is no doubt that we should reach an understanding with this country. This does not concern only Greece, it concerns the whole of Europe. So Europe should be active in this field. We know that there are European funds, so pressures can be exerted. We do not ask for something extreme. Okay, let's come to the previous issue, the energy field, and there is a commitment of the Americans that if things go well, energy-wise, the United States will support any effort of Greece there. What would you say on an intervention if things are questioned by Turkey, an intervention by the Americans? What is your comment? And since there is a general uncertainty, I do not believe that the states will leave things as they are, thus leading to an intervention. What we should all understand, and the United States know it, and Europe knows it, is that we should prevent things. If we want to be helpful, now we should understand that it is very important to improve our relations with Libya and reach an agreement and plan things in a way to avoid creating problems for any part and move towards the right direction. Waiting for an intervention once the problem is there is not a good idea. Many analyses in Athens say that the dogma where the stance of Turkey in the Aegean is based, or a connection with the electric cable of Cassos, is that they want to have a say on all the energy projects in the Aegean. How would you comment that? Do you agree? We are in front of a major issue. Let me say how I see things so that you will understand that towards which direction we are moving. You remember that we moved very rapidly and we accepted some positions we didn't want in order to undersign an exclusive zone with Egypt. This has been approved by both parliaments. It has been forwarded to the United Nations, and our objective was not to have the Turkish-Libyan agreement active. This is covered by the exclusive zone, and we have reached an agreement with Egypt. We have reached a point at which we should continue with the Eurasia connector. We had two regions. The first region was at the territorial waters of Tassos and Karpathos, and the second was international waters close to these islands. This area is within the exclusive zone that we signed with Egypt. When we start entering this area, as we remember, the Turkish vessels arrive and they say, stop it, you cannot continue if you do not get a permit from Turkey in an area which is exclusive zone of the country. I do not know what happened. We suppose what happened. And from what we understand, the major issue of Turkey is to be the one in command in the area. And there lies the problem. If somebody goes and asks for their permission, they will say yes. They want to be asked and express an opinion about everything. Do you agree with this position? No, I do not agree. I believe that the position of the country should be adamant, at least as sovereign rights are concerned, and we should use all our advantages, all the weapons we have in our arsenal. Let me say something once again. Greece has historic connections, links with the Arab world. It is a country that belongs to the European Union, to the Atlantic Alliance. Very often it has acted as a bridge. So it should use these possibilities and these weapons in order to maintain a balance in the area and in order to maintain its sovereign rights. It should be adamant and very clear in our position, stepping backwards in order to avoid conflicts or escalation is not a good idea. We lose something. Every single time I have repeatedly said that Turkey does not need to become aggressive. They are doing the job step by step. Thank you very much. We will continue on Monday during our
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον κύριο Φάνη
transmission.
Παπαθανασίου και
We
τον
thank
Άβαρχο
Mr. Francis
Ευάγγελο Αποστολάκη.
Mr.
Και προχωράμε τώρα στην επόμενη συζήτησή μας, η
Apostolakis,
οποία
and
θα
now we
γίνει και
move
στα
on to the
ελληνικά
next
και στα
discussion,
αγγλικά.
which will be in both
So I
in
would
Greek
like
and
to ask
English.
Mr. Athanasios Ellis to come on stage. I would like also to ask U.S. Ambassador Thomas Miller, Ambassador Dimitris Paraskevopoulos, and Professor of International Relations, Mr. Konstantinos Filis.
So let me start with the ambassador, since he came all the way from the US, to ask you with the latest in the sense of how do you feel, or what's your sense with the Trump administration's policy in our area, and more specifically, if you're kind enough to answer, the relationship between Greece and Turkey. How would the Trump administration deal with us?
Well, first of all, I must say, first of all, I want to thank Peter and the foundation for this wonderful dialogue. I think it's terrific, and I hope you have many more years of it. So thank you very much. I'm delaying answering your question because I don't have a clue. The Trump administration, frankly, is an enigma to many Americans. I am not out here to be an interpreter of the Trump administration. I don't have any connections with it, and in fact, very few people do. That said, I'm not going to dodge your question. This administration does not do traditional foreign policy. So everything I did for my entire 3-decade career in the State Department is thrown out the window. It just doesn't work that way. It's very idiosyncratic, very personalized foreign policy by a president who has severely cut the National Security Council, decimated the State Department, refuses to appoint any career people to ambassadorships, and I could go on and on and on. And so this is all centered in one person. Now, thus far, we only have the first Trump administration as an example. And there's a couple of markers that I would cite. First of all, you have a prime minister who totally gets how to deal with this administration, and that's kudos to you. And by the way, I'm as nonpartisan now toward what's going on in this government as I was when I was ambassador. So I'm not trying to make a pro or con speech toward any Greek politician. But Mitsotakis does understand how to deal with Trump, and that's good. That's very good. Second of all, you got a president who likes strong people. That's not good for Greece. He likes people who exude strength. Putin, Xi, Erdogan, and the list goes on. Bukele. What worries me about that, and third of all, you also have a president who loves to make deals. Everything is about the deal. He wrote a book about it. And what worries me is he might focus his attention on this part of the world and think there might be a deal to be made. Now, that's not necessarily bad for Greece, because there's one other element in the United States, and that is he is a very good politician. And he knows that the Greek American community, the Cypriot American community, is a very powerful element. And I think he'd think twice, even though he's not up for re-election, before he would upset them needlessly.
Since you mentioned, before I go to the next people here up on the panel, is it really powerful? I've been there for many decades, and I think it is. I mean, it does have some influence. There's a debate how influential it is. Fanis will watch afterwards a discussion with one of the people who does have influence or friendship with the president, Mr. Katsimatidis. There are others. What's influence? I know that, there are the numbers of voters, there's the financial support. Sometimes unfairly, people talk about the Israeli lobby, the Jewish lobby in the US, and that's unfair to the Greeks, meaning we know we're not that powerful. But are we? I mean, is the Greek American community a force to be reckoned with in Washington?
Yeah, I do think so. And I say that, I first started coming to Greece in 1985, so it's been 40 years. And one thing that I think has been pretty much a constant is the community. It's not the numbers and it's not the money. And people have to understand this. They've figured out how to get things done. And it's not just with the president, it's with the Congress and it's with others. Now, I don't want to overemphasize this.
No,
I don't want to
right.
make it sound like
But there's a perception there that we do matter.
You do matter. The Greek American community and the Cypriot American community most definitely matter.
Let me move to the ambassador, another ambassador, the Greek ambassador. Former. Well,
We're all former.
they're all former. Αλλά οι πρώην συνήθως έχουν και την άνεση να
But
κάνουν
the
πιο έτσι
former,
άνετα
have the
συζητήσεις. Το είδαμε την
luxury
κυρία Μέρκελ
of
πριν μερικές μέρες.
discussing more. We
Είπε
saw it with
πολλά
Madame
πράγματα
Merkel the other day.
στη
She
διάρκεια
said
της
a
θητείας
lot
της.
that
Πώς
she
βλέπετε τις
wouldn't have said
εξελίξεις στην
during her
περιοχή από
mandate.
την
How do
ελληνική
you see
οπτική?
developments in the
Και
region
όταν λέω
from the Greek
εξελίξεις,
point of view? And
περιλαμβάνω σε
when I say
αυτό
development,
και
I mean
τον
I
πόλεμο των 12
include
ημερών, δηλαδή την
the 12-day war, that is the
Ισραηλο-Ιρανική κρίση, τον πόλεμο στην Ουκρανία που
Iranian
δυστυχώς
crisis,
συνεχίζεται,
the
πού
war in
είμαστε σήμερα
Ukraine, which
και τι πρέπει να
unfortunately has
κάνει η
been going
Ελλάδα
on.
ή τι
Where
κάνει,
are we today,
σωστά ή
and
δεν
what
κάνει και
should
άλλα.
Greece do, or what isn't it doing right?
Είναι η $1 million question.
This is the $1 million question.
Πολλά πράγματα. Το state of
Lots of
play.
things. First of all, the state of
Εξ
play.
αρχής ήταν δεδομένο για τον πόλεμο των, όπως
From
κατέληξε
the
τώρα,
start,
ημερών,
it was
δεν μπορούσε να
clear
είναι
with this
ούτε στρατηγική
12-day
νίκη,
war
ούτε
that it couldn't be a
στρατηγική
strategic
ήττα.
victory or strategic
Για
defeat
πολλούς και αντικειμενικούς λόγους.
for many and objective
Το
reasons.
δεύτερο είναι ότι
Second,
η παρέμβαση των ΗΠΑ
the
μετά
intervention of
από
the
πολλές
US
δεκαετίες
after
στη
loads
Μέση
of
Ανατολή
decades
ήταν
in
καταλυτική.
the Middle East was a catalyst.
Το τρίτο είναι ότι
Third,
δεν μπορούν, αν θέλουμε να το δούμε
if we want
με τις ιστορικές παραμέτρους,
if we take the
οι
historic
αριθμοί
parameters, the
είναι
numbers
πάντα εις βάρος του Ισραήλ.
are
Είναι
always
μια
against Israel.
βραχομεσοπρόθεσμη
It is
νίκη,
a
η
short
οποία
medium
κατέληξε να
term
έχει,
victory,
αυτός ίσως
which
ήταν και ο αρχικός
perhaps
κύριος
this was
σκοπός,
the
την
main purpose
καταστροφή του
all along,
πυρηνικού προγράμματος
which
του Ιράν.
mainly destroyed the
Τώρα,
Iranian
τα άλλα
nuclear
κάτι
program.
διαγγέλματα του
Now,
Νετανιάχου για
other
μια στήριξη
declarations
του
by
Ισραήλ και ανατροπή του
Netanyahu
καθεστώτος είναι λίγο εξωπραγματικά.
against the regime of
Το τέταρτο είναι
Iran
ότι το
and how
Ιράν ένα
to
χρόνο πριν
overturn
που
it.
είμαστε
This
εδώ,
is
λέγαμε
not
ότι ήταν ο
realistic.
μεγάλος
A year
νικητής
ago, we said that
του
Iran was
πολέμου
the
της Συρίας και
major
ελευθερευόντος
winner of
στο
the
Ιράκ.
Syria war and then
Τώρα είναι ο
the
μεγάλος ηττημένος.
in Iraq. Now,
Στα μείον του τα δεδομένα και διαχρονικά
Iran is the
μείον του είναι ότι δεν
loser.
έχει συμμάχους. Και δεν υπάρχει
One of
περίπτωση
its
να έχει.
cons,
Γι'
major
αυτό
cons, is that it
λέγαμε
has no
ο
allies,
άξονας
and there's no case
αντίστασης
it
με
can have
ποιους,
allies.
Χεσμολάχ, τη Χαμάς, τους
There's
Χούθι,
Hezbollah,
το καθεστώς του Άσαντ κτλ.
Hamas,
Όλα αυτά είναι τελειωμένα.
Houthi, and the Assad
Όμως το
regime,
Ιράν δεν είναι
and
Ιράκ.
all these
Και με όλο το
are
σεβασμό
losers. And Iran is
το
not
Ιράν δεν
Iraq.
είναι
Iran
αραβική χώρα. Είναι
is not
Πέρσες.
an Arab country. They're
Είναι μια χώρα
Persians.
με πάνω από
It's a
85 εκατομμύρια
country
κατοικούς,
with more
τεράστια
than
έκταση
85 million
και είχαμε
inhabitants,
αυτό
a
τον,
large,
πώς να πω έτσι, unusual
it is a
war
large country,
και
and
δεν
we had this
υπήρχαν boots on
unusual
the
war
ground.
where there were no
Και
boots on
να
the ground.
υπήρχε κοινό
And even
σύνορο
if there was a
Ισραήλ
common
και Ιράν,
border between
δεν ήταν
Israel and
δυνατόν
Iran,
το Ιράν,
it was not
το
possible
Ισραήλ
for
των 8,9
Israel of
εκατομμυρίων να
only
μπορέσει να
8-9
προχωρήσει, να
million
κατακτήσει
people
ή να νικήσει
to
στρατηγικά
conquer or
το Ιράν.
strategically win
Η προσωπική
Iran.
μου άποψη είναι ότι
My personal
υπάρχουν δύο
view
ενδεχόμενα.
is that there are two
Το ένα είναι
possibilities. One,
όλη αυτή η ρευστοποίηση
all
του
this
γεωπολιτικού αλλά και του χάρτη καθεαυτού, όπως φτιάχτηκε από την εποχή του βιβλίου,
volatility
σίγουρα το έχετε
in
διαβάσει, A Line in the Sand,
the recent
είναι εξαιρετικά
geopolitics
επικίνδυνο,
is very
διότι το The
difficult
Line in the Sun
and
κατέληξε
dangerous
στη
because
συνθήκη
the
της
line in the
Λοζάνης
sun
και θέλω να ρίξω
led to
όλο
the
το βάρος
Lausanne
της δικής μου
Treaty,
παρέμβασης
and
πάνω
I
σε αυτό,
want to
διότι
emphasize
δεν έχει
this
συζητηθεί
mostly
εδώ.
because it has
Ο
not been discussed
ο
here.
χάρτης της
The
Μέσης
map
Ανατολής, ο
of the
οποίος
Middle
είναι
East
και της Βόρειας Αφρικής με τα 9
and
δέκατα
Northern Africa,
του κειμένου της συνθήκης της Λοζάνης,
which accounts for
είναι τα
9/10 of
ελληνοτουρκικά,
the
είναι
Lausanne
τα ίσα.
Treaty, because the Lausanne Treaty was
Παραμένει
mostly
σχεδόν ο
about that,
ίδιος
not the
από την εποχή που
Greek-Turkish
χαράκτηκε.
relations,
Με
have
μόνη
not changed. The map
την
has not
εισβολή των
changed
Τούρκων στην
since
Αλεξανδρέτα, στο
then,
Σεντζάκι του Ισκεντερούν, το οποίο το
save
πήραμε το
for
1939.
the invasion of the Turks
Εάν
in Skenderun.
αρχίσει η αναδιάταξη των
Now,
συνόρων,
if borders
γίνεται
are
domino effect, το
redesigned, there
οποίο
is going to be a
ευνοεί την
domino
Τουρκία
effect
με
that will
προηγούμενο
favor
πλέον
Turkey
γεωπολιτικό
because there will be a
και πάνω
geopolitical
στις
precedent
διεκδικήσεις τις οποίες έχει και δεν είναι
with
μόνο
regard to
ΑΟΣ
its
και τα λοιπά και
claims,
τα
its
ξέρουμε.
territorial
Λοιπόν,
claims, not only the
πρέπει η
exclusive
άλλη
economic
επιλογή να
zones. We
γίνει,
know everything
κατά
else.
την
So the
προσωπική μου
other
ταπεινή
option,
άποψη,
in my
πώς
opinion,
θα ρημουλκίσουμε το
is
Ιράν
to see how we're
μέσα
going
σε μια
to lure
upon
Iran
verification και πάλι
upon
συμφωνία για τα
verification
πυρηνικά και όχι μόνο.
into a
Το τι
nuclear
θα γίνει
agreement.
εσωτερικά στο
Agreement on
Ιράν
nuclear
είναι ιστορία άλλη. Η Ελλάδα δεν
Weapons,
είναι
and
μια
not only
κουβέντα.
that. Greece is another
Η Ελλάδα έχει δύο ισχυρά
issue.
σχήματα.
Greece has got two
Τη συνεργασία πλέον είναι partnership με το Ισραήλ και
two
με την
strengths.
Αίγυπτο.
First is partnership with
Ισχυρότερη με το
Israel,
Ισραήλ,
and second
περισσότερο
with
από ό,τι φαντάζονται
Egypt.
στην Ελλάδα οι δικοί
Stronger
μας.
with Israel, more
Γιατί
than people in
είχαμε και
Greece
παρόν
know,
κάποτε, μόνο σε εμάς
because
εμπιστεύεται και σε εμάς έχει
Israel
χρησιμοποιήθηκε αυτό το
only
ρήμα, έχει
trusts
αγκυροβολήσει.
us and
Εντάξει,
has
μπορεί να ακούγεται
anchored in
μονοδιάστατο,
Greece.
αλλά
May
μέσα σε μια
sound
ρευστή κατάσταση ανατροπής
unidimensional, but in a
ισορροπιών,
volatile
είναι η βασική
situation
σταθερά.
where
Να
the
είναι και
the
δικαιολογημένο
balances are
διότι η
upset is
Ελλάδα
is a constant.
ας πάρουμε τα
Well, it's
τελευταία 15
justifiable
ετία που
because
δεν
Greece, over the past
μετάνουν
15 years
κυβερνήσεις,
after 2010,
σοσιαλιστική
with
και τώρα ας πούμε του Γιώργου
different
Παπανδρέου, δεξιά το
governments,
ρεύμα,
socialist,
αριστερή
right
του
wing,
Αλεξίου, ακροδεξιά του Κυριάκου
left
Μητσοτάκη,
wing,
έχουν
again right
σταθερή
wing.
θέση
It
για το
has
Ισραήλ και
had a
νομίζω αυτό
constant
έχει αποτιμηθεί. Πέρα το ότι είμαστε
stance
ίσονοι στην
and
Ευρωπαϊκή
position
Ένωση,
vis-à-vis
Βεβαίως
Israel,
είναι το
apart
θέμα
from
της
the fact
Γάζας,
that we are a member
όπου
of the European
ξέρουμε
Union.
ότι
Of
zero
course, is
sum,
the
μηδενικού
Gaza issue where we
αφρίσματος
know that
λύσης δεν μπορεί να υπάρξει.
there can be no
όχι, αλλά και εκεί
zero-sum
πιέζομαι να
solution.
ακολουθήσει μια...
But even
Όχι
there,
εμείς,
I believe
μιλάω για
not
την
we, not us,
κατάσταση.
not us. I'm talking about there.
Ο κύριος Φίλης.
Mr.
Δεν ξέρω αν
Phillips,
θέλετε να τοποθετηθείτε
I
σε
don't know
κάτι
if
που
you'd
έχει
like
υποθεί, αλλά πριν,
to
αλλά εγώ θα ρωτούσα για το επειδή
say
έθεσε
anything
ο
based on what
Ναύαρχος
has already been said,
η
but
συζήτηση για το
because
τουρκολιβικό,
there was this
πώς βλέπετε
discussion
την
on the
εξέλιξη
Turkish-Libyan
σε
agreement,
αυτό το
how do
πεδίο,
you
μια
see
και
the
είναι
development in this
ένα πεδίο με το οποίο ασχολείστε
field?
πολύ το τελευταίο διάστημα και σε ένα πεδίο στο οποίο έχουμε
Because this is
εξέλιξη
an
και
issue
σε
you've
ό,τι
been
αφορά
dealing
τη
with.
δική μας
This is
πλευρά.
a
Ο κ.
field where we've
Παπασταύρου
had
ήταν εδώ
developments.
υγιές, συναντήθηκε στο
Mr.
Houston
Papastavru
με τις
went and met
εταιρείες να δω ότι υπάρχει μια
in
εξέλιξη με την
Houston with the
Chevron και
companies,
εκεί
so
και με την
there are
εξέλιξη σε ό,τι
developments with the
αφορά
Chevron,
την
and of
Λιβύη
course
με τις δικές
developments
σας
regarding
ενεργειακές προσπάθειες.
Libya and its
Ωραία,
own
ευχαριστώ
energy
πολύ. Καταρχάς, ευχαριστώ
efforts.
πολύ τον κύριο
Well,
Μίχαλο
thank
για
you very
την
much. And I would like to thank
πρόσκληση.
Mr. Michalis for this invitation.
Θα ξεκινήσω από το πιο γενικό, πολύ
I'll start
σύντομα, για να έρθω στο
with something
ειδικό
more general and
που
then
θέσατε,
come
κύριε Ελίς.
to the more specific.
Η τάση αυτή τη στιγμή, εδώ και καιρό, προ της
For
έλευσης
quite
Τραμπ
some
για δεύτερη
time,
φορά στο
even
Λευκό Οίκο,
before the
είναι μια σχετική
second
συρρήκνωση της
office of Trump,
παγκοσμιοποίησης, χωρίς αυτό
is
να
the trend
σημαίνει
has
ότι δεν
been
υπάρχει αλληλεπίδραση, δεν υπάρχει
shrinking
αλληλεξάρτηση,
of
αλλά μια σχετική
the
συρρήκνωση υπέρ
shrinking
της λεγόμενης περιφερειοποίησης. Δηλαδή βλέπουμε αυτή
of
τη στιγμή
globalization instead of
να υπάρχουν
regionalization. So what
περιφερειακά
we've been
σχήματα
seeing is
ή
that with the
χώρες σε
regional
περιφέρειες,
schemes
όπου οι Ηνωμένες
or
Πολιτείες
countries
πλέον
in
έχουν
regions
μειωμένο
where
ενδιαφέρον
the
για μία
US
σειρά λόγων,
has
μην τα αναφέρω, όπου
reduced
εκεί
interest
αυτές
in
οι
them
περιφερειακές
for various reasons.
δυνάμεις
And these
έχουν
regional
φιλοδοξίες
powers
που είναι υπέρτερες
have
ενδεχομένως των
aspirations
δυνατοτήτων τους, αλλά σε
that,
περιφερειακό
that
επίπεδο μπορούν να
exceed their
ασκήσουν πολύ
actual
σημαντική επιρροή.
potential,
Δεν
but
είναι
can be
παγκόσμιες
influential
δυνάμεις, είναι όμως
regionally. So they're not global
διαπεριφερειακές
powers, but they are
υπερδυνάμεις, μπορώ να πω. Ένα
regional
χαρακτηριστικό
superpowers.
παράδειγμα
A
είναι η
typical
Ρωσία, η
example
οποία
is
έχει
Russia,
μικρότερο
which
ΑΕΠ από
has
την Ισπανία, που είναι η
smaller
τέταρτη
GDP
μεγαλύτερη
than
οικονομία της
Spain, which is
Ευρωζώνης.
the fourth
Μια χώρα που
largest
έχει
economy in the
πυρηνικά μεν,
Euro area.
μόνιμη θέση στο
It
Συμβούλιο
has got
Ασφαλείας του Οργανισμού
nuclear
Ηνωμένων Εθνών, αλλά
weapons
περιορισμένες
and
δυνατότητες κατά τα
permanent
λοιπά, με μια υπερσυγκεντρωτική οικονομία
position in
προβληματική,
the
που όμως στο μετασοβιετικό
Security
χώρο ασκεί
Council,
επιρροή,
but
το βλέπουμε στην
which is
Ουκρανία, δεν μπορεί να πάει πολύ
which is
παραπέρα, ασκούσε και μια
influential.
επιρροή στη Μέση Ανατολή.
It
Έχει
was
περιοριστεί το
influential
αυτό το
on
κομμάτι λόγω των εξελίξεων
the
στη
Middle East,
Συρία,
but its
της
footprint
ανατροπής του
has
Άσαντ,
shrunk
λόγω
because
της
of
υποχώρησης του Ιράν και
the
λειτουργεί
collapse of
περισσότερο
the
σαν κράτος
Assad
spoiler η
regime,
Ρωσία, είτε στη
and is
Μέση
a
Ανατολή
spoiler
είτε στα
state, mostly
Βαλκάνια.
in the Middle
Πλην
East and the
όμως είχε
Balkans.
ένα αποτύπωμα,
But it
χωρίς αυτό
did
να
have a
σημαίνει ότι είναι παγκόσμια
footprint
δύναμη. Έχουμε άλλες
without it
χώρες όπως
being
το
global
Ιράν, το
power.
ανέφερε πριν ο πρέσβης
We've
πολύ
got
σωστά,
Iran,
του
as the
οποίου
ambassador
η
said,
στρατηγική ισχύς που έφτανε
whose
μέχρι και τη
strategic
Μεσόγειο μέσω
power
Συρίας και με
that
τους δορυφόρους που είχε
reached the
αναπτύξει και
Mediterranean
Hezbollah,
through Syria, and
Χαμάς,
it's
Χούθι, σιητικές
the
πολιτοφυλακές στο Ιράκ
Houthi,
και ούτω
the
καθεξής.
Shiite
Έχει
militia in
παραχωρήσει
Iraq,
δραματικά μετά τον πόλεμο που
Hezbollah,
προέκυψε μετά την
etc.,
τρομοκρατική ενέργεια
has
του τρόμου στο Φεβρουάριο του
subsided
2023 και έχουμε και την Τουρκία, η
after
οποία με τη
2023, and
σειρά
we've
της
got
βλέπει ένα
Turkey,
κενό
which
το οποίο
in
έχει
turn
προκληθεί
sees a gap that
από
has
όχι την
been created
αποστασιοποίηση των
not
Αμερικανών, αλλά την
because
απροθυμία τους να ασχολούνται με τα
the
καθημερινά.
US has
Και αν κάτι
alienated
θα
itself,
έβλεπα
but
στα
because it doesn't
ελληνοτουρκικά, για
want
να
to
πυροδοτήσω λίγο
deal
και
with
τη
everyday
συζήτηση
matters. And
στη
it
συνέχεια
is
πριν σας απαντήσω για
something
το
that I
τουρκολιβικό,
can
που
see
είναι
in the
σχετικά ανησυχητικό,
Greek-Turkish
είναι ότι,
relations as quite
ότι
worrying,
αντιθέτως με
is that
προηγούμενες διοικήσεις, ο Τραμπ
unlike previous
μάλλον έχει
administrations,
μικρότερο
Trump
ενδιαφέρον να εμπλακεί
is less
όταν
interested in being
μια
involved
ενδεχόμενη κρίση
when
προκύψει, πριν αυτή
there
γίνει
is a
κάτι χειρότερο.
crisis
Ενώ
before it
οι
becomes
προκάτοχοί
something
του, όταν
worse.
έβλεπαν μια κρίση
Whereas
να
his
εξελίσσεται,
predecessors, when they saw
επενέβαιναν. Αλλά θέλω να
a
ακούσω και τον
crisis
κύριο Μίλλερ γι' αυτό
emerging,
και
they
μετά
would
τον Brexit.
intervene. But I'd like
Το
to
είδαμε και
hear
με
the
το
opinion of
Ινδία,
Το είδαμε με
Πακιστάν.
Ινδία,
Ambassador
Πακιστάν,
Miller.
αλλά
We
είναι
saw that
γενικώς
in
νομίζω
India and
μία
Pakistan
αντίληψη
as well.
του Τραμπ.
Yes, we saw that there as well, but this is the perception of Trump. And by the way, I'd like to say something about Trump. I believe that he uses his guts to and personal interest
είτε είναι
like
κάτι άλλο,
deals, as
το
Miller
συνδέει με το
said, in
εθνικό
order to
συμφέρον.
react to
Θέλω να σημειώσω
foreign
εδώ για το
policy,
ακροατήριο
international
ότι αυτό είναι
relations.
που κάνουν συνήθως οι
Now,
αυταρχικοί ηγέτες.
this is what
Την προσωπική τους
authoritarian
θέση
leaders
και
do.
άποψη τη συνδέουν με
Their
την εθνική, έτσι ώστε
personal
όποιος πηγαίνει απέναντί τους
ideals,
να
position,
θεωρείται
and
εχθρός του
interest
έθνους,
is
όχι
linked
μόνο
to their
προσωπικός
nation,
αντίπαλος των
to the
ιδίων.
national.
Έρχομαι λοιπόν στο
Therefore,
τουρκολιβικό
any
για να
personal enemies become
ολοκληρώσω
national
την
enemies.
απάντησή μου.
Now, I'm coming to the
Έχουμε μια
Turkish-Libyan
συμφωνία που είναι παράνομη
agreement.
και όλα
We've
που
got an
θέλουμε να
agreement that is
χαρακτηρίσουμε, αλλά
illegal,
την οποία την
irregular, and
έχουμε στους
everything,
δέκονες.
but
Και θα
which
την έχουμε
is
και για
there
πολύ καιρό
and
ακόμη.
will be
Γιατί?
there for
Γιατί η
quite some
Τουρκία,
time, because
σφετεριζόμενη κυριαρχικά
Turkey,
δικαιώματα της Ελλάδας σε σχέση με το
usurping
τουρκολιβικό, ή
sovereign
της Κύπρου
rights
σε
of Greece
σχέση με
in
συμφωνίες που προτείνει στην
uh,
Αίγυπτο ή ακόμα και στη Συρία και στο Λίβανο και ούτω
with
καθεξής. Τι κάνει?
its
Προσφέρει μεγαλύτερη
offers
αποκλειστική οικονομική ζώνη, δηλαδή
more
μεγαλύτερη ετήρια σε αυτές τις χώρες
larger
αποκλειστική οικονομική ζώνη από αυτή που θα
exclusive
δικαιούταν αν έκαναν
economic
νόμιμες
area
συμφωνίες.
to these
Επομένως,
countries
ποιος Λίβιος ηγέτης
than they would
μπορεί να είναι
have
φιλέλληνας,
if
μπορεί
they
να
had
είναι να αγαπάει
legal
την Ελλάδα, να έρχεται κάθε χρόνο διακοπές, θα
exclusive economic zone.
αποτολμήσει
So what
να
Libyan
πάει
leader,
και να
no matter
αλλάξει
how
τη
much
συμφωνία με την Τουρκία,
he
που είναι
likes
παράνομη,
Greece,
για να
would
κάνει μια
dare
συμφωνία με την
change
Ελλάδα που
this
θα είναι νόμιμη, η
illegal
οποία όμως θα αφαιρεί
agreement in order
αποκλειστική
to enter
οικονομική
a
ζώνη από τη
legal
Λιβύη.
agreement
Να είμαστε
with
σοβαροί.
Greece,
Εγώ δεν βλέπω
which
αυτό
would
στο
result in a
προβλεπτό μέλλον,
smaller
για να μην πω στο απότερο, να συμβαίνει.
exclusive economic
Από εκεί και πέρα
area.
έχουμε λοιπόν
I
αυτή τη
don't see
συμφωνία σε
this
βάρος μας,
possible.
την
So
οποία δεν
we've got
μπορούμε να
this
την
agreement,
αλλάξουμε.
which is
Αυτό το οποίο πρέπει
detrimental
να
for us.
κάνουμε
We
είναι
can't
να
change
έχουμε
it. What
μια
we
το
should do
δυνατόν μεγαλύτερη
is
παρουσία,
have
που δεν την έχουμε. Είναι
a
η
strong
παρουσία μας έχει
presence, which we
διακυμάνσεις
don't.
στη
Our
Λιβύη τα
presence
τελευταία
has
χρόνια.
been
Και
varied
αυτό
in
το οποίο
Libya in
προτείνω και
recent
σε
years.
ένα άρθρο μου
And
αύριο στην
what
Καθημερινή είναι να
I'm
κοιτάξουμε
proposing
αν
in an
μπορούμε να
article of
φτιάξουμε
mine
δύο
tomorrow in
τριμερή
Καθημερινή is
σχήματα.
to see if
Το
we
ένα
can
είναι με
have
την Αίγυπτο και την
two
Ανατολική Λιβύη,
tripartite
γιατί η Αίγυπτος είναι πολύ σημαντική για την Ανατολική Λιβύη και επηρεάζεται από την
sort of
Ανατολική
schemes.
Λιβύη πάρα πολύ.
One with
Και η Αίγυπτος είναι
Egypt
μια
in
χώρα
Israel
κλειδί για
because
την
Egypt
περιοχή,
is a key
που
country
αν και
for the
εφόσον
region.
μπει σε
And
κρίση
if
και δημιουργήσει
if
μια
there is a
μαύρη
crisis
τρύπα,
there
ζήτω που
and there is a
καήκαμε.
black hole
Και ένα άλλο,
there
μια άλλη τριμερή
in Egypt,
ενδεχομένως
it
που θα
will
μπορούσαμε
be
να
a
δημιουργήσουμε
disaster.
είναι με τη Δυτική
And
Λιβύη,
another
δηλαδή με την Τρίπολη και
tripartite
την Ιταλία. Η Ιταλία είναι μια
collaboration will
πολύ
be with
σημαντική χώρα
Western
για
Libya and
εμάς,
Italy.
πολύ
Italy is a
σημαντική
very
χώρα μάλλον
important
για τη
country for
Λιβύη,
us, very
τις
important
οποίες
for
τα
Libya
συμφέροντα έχουν
rather.
ευθυγραμμιστεί
The
τα
interests of which
τελευταία
have been
χρόνια με τις
aligned in
Τουρκίες.
recent
Γι'
years
αυτό και τη
with those
βλέπουμε
of
και για
Turkey,
λόγους
and this is
μεταναστευτικούς
why
και
we
γιατί
see
η
that for
Ένη, ο ενεργειακός
migration
κολοσσός,
reasons
εμπλέκεται
or
στη Λιβύη,
because
βλέπουμε την
any
Ιταλία να
the
είναι πάρα
energy
πολύ ισχυρή
colossal
εκεί, αλλά να
company is very
ενδιαφέρεται
strong
και για τα
there in
συμφέροντα
Libya,
της Τουρκίας ή
but
να περνούν
he's
τα δικά
also
της
interested
συμφέροντα
in
μέσα
the
από αυτά της
interests,
Τουρκίας.
of Turkey,
Μου
or having
ακούγεται
its own
πολύ
interests aligned with
υπερβατικό
its
να
own.
κάνουμε δύο τριμερείς
I see this
συμφωνίες.
quite
Τη μία το
revolutionary to have two or three
Αίγυπτο-Ιταλία,
tripartite schemes, one Egypt, Italy,
στη
fair
μία να
enough,
είμαστε με
and the
την
on the
Ανατολική,
one
στην άλλη
hand
με τη
to be
Δυτική
with
Δεν είπα
και να
συμφωνίες, είπα
in one.
συνεννοήσεις. Δεν είπα
I
συμφωνίες,
didn't
είπα να
have
κάνουμε τριμερείς
agreements. I said to
συναντήσεις,
have
γιατί θα
είναι
πρέπει
ενδιαφέρουσα
εμάς
tripartite
σκέψη.
να
Δηλαδή
έχει
απλά θέλω
μία,
να
meetings.
πω
It's
πρακτικά
interesting.
να έχει μία
But
παρουσία στη
practically
Λιβύη.
speaking,
Γιατί δεν
well,
το
to have
καταλάβαμε, την
presence
Αίγυπτο
in
έχουμε πολύ
Libya,
καλή σχέση.
I don't
Με την
understand.
Ανατολική Λιβύη είχαμε
I've got
πλέον
excellent
έχουμε
relations with
προβλήματα.
Egypt. With
Αν
Eastern
δεν
Libya,
επικυρωθεί η
we've had
συμφωνία
problems, and if
μεταξύ,
the
μάλλον
agreement
Τουρκίας-Λιβύης
between
από το Κοινοβούλιο,
Turkish-Libyan
θα
agreement
έχουμε
is
ένα πρόβλημα, αλλά
ratified
ξέρετε
by the
κάτι.
parliament, we'll
Δεν
have a
ξέρω αν το
problem there.
γνωρίζετε
But you know
πρακτικώς.
what?
Πότε
I don't know if
έγιναν οι
the
εκλογές
people here know
στη
it,
Λιβύη
but
τελευταία
when
φορά?
were the last
Τον Ιούνιο του
elections in Libya?
2014.
In June
Και καλείται ένα
2014.
κοινοβούλιο το οποίο
And
βρίσκεται
a
11
parliament
χρόνια
which for 11
εκεί,
years
χωρίς
has been
εκλογές, για
there
να επικυρώσει μια
without any
συμφωνία
elections
παράνομη, η
will
οποία
ratify an illegal
συνάφθηκε πριν
agreement
από 5,5
which
χρόνια. Από εκεί
was
πέρα βγάζουμε τα
signed
συμπεράσματά μας.
5.5 years ago. So
Ambassador,
draw your conclusion.
people, or you mentioned also the fact that the president
Κύριε
of the US likes strong leaders. But we're also in a world where we also have many demagogues, many leaders who don't act the way people used to. They don't follow international law, which might be a lesson for us, unfortunately, to see how we navigate this new world order. So I was wondering how these leaders impact foreign policy, especially in our region.
I
One of
think
them
that
could be Erdogan, of course.
I think that's a superb question, and I think, Tom, your question, in a way, offers an opportunity to expand this conversation well beyond the Eastern Med. I'd like to make two brief points. First, if I had been invited to a conference like this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it would have been Greece, Turkey, Cyprus. Now, when you talk about the Eastern Med, you talk about Lebanon, Israel, Egypt, Libya, and Greece, Turkey, Cyprus.
Iran.
Well, possibly. But, and you can attribute that somewhat to energy, but I think there's more going on than that. And so I think terms have changed. Now, as to your question, I think there's something that's going on around the world that, in a way, started here in Greece. Three things have been happening. First, a general rejection by the peoples of the world, and when I say the world, I mean the West, of traditional political structures. In the United States, rejection of traditional Democrats and the Bush type of Republicans. In Greece, back not too long ago, of the two traditional parties. And then you could go literally around the world. You could go throughout Europe. What happened? Macron came out of nowhere. Rejection of the left and the right. What's happening in the UK today. And I think that is something that when we focus here at the Nisyros Dialogue on these specific issues, we can't ignore the bigger picture out there. And I think the bigger picture is this is a worldwide phenomenon. Second, why that rejection? Because the ideas and the policies that came out of the establishment in the past have been perceived by populations as no longer working for them. And that, again, is around the world. It happened here with the financial crisis, coinciding with the financial crisis. It's happened in the States, it's happened throughout Europe. And the third, and this really gets to your question, is with that as a backdrop, the ease in which populist leaders have been able to enter this vacuum. And that's exactly what's happened. Populist leaders don't have to have policies, they have to have grievances. And that's what happened here, that's what happened in the States, that's what happened throughout much of Western Europe. And I see this as an evolution over time. And in a curious kind of way, let's come back to the Nisyros Dialogue. Let's come back to Greece. You kind of worked your way out of this one quicker than the rest of us. You went through the rejection of the traditional parties. You went through a rejection of the traditional policies. And you went through a rejection, frankly, of the populist appeal. I don't know where the rest of us are going to come out or how the rest of us will come out. But I offer that just as some thinking about, here we are focused on the regional issues, on some very, very important issues, but I don't think we can ignore the bigger picture, the much bigger picture, because all of that impacts what's happening here in Greece today.
Κύριε Πρέσβη, να πάω σε μια πολύ γενική συζήτηση για τα ελληνοτουρκικά. Ποια είναι η αίσθησή σας στο σημερινό περιβάλλον?
What is your feeling in today's milieu? The Supreme Council of Cooperation is continuously postponed. At what stage are we now as to Greek-Turkish relations? I believe today President Erdogan said that probably he believes that they will proceed with the agreement they made with President Abbas on F-13, so have this personal relation between Erdogan and what is your opinion on this equation?
Καταρχήν πρέπει να
First of all,
καταλάβουμε,
we should understand,
είτε αρέσει δεν αρέσει, ότι
whether
στον
we like
ευρύτερο
it or
χώρο
not, that
της
in the
Ανατολικής
wider
Μεσογείου και της Μέσης
area
Ανατολής,
of the Eastern
η
Mediterranean and the
Τουρκία
Middle
είναι,
East,
για να χρησιμοποιήσουμε τον
Turkey,
αμερικανικό όρο,
in order to
established.
use the American term, established.
Μικρομεσαία δύναμη, να μην πω κάτι παραπάνω. Το ερώτημα είναι,
Small and
κύριε
medium
Πρέσβη,
power,
Mr. Ambassador,
to say the least.
whether
The question
the
is,
United
Mr.
States,
Ambassador,
in possible reshaping of the region, they will give the role of the local gendarme to Turkey. Αυτό ήταν το σχέδιο υπηρετούσα στην Άγκυρα το 1989
Well,
την κατάρρευση
I
της
was in
Σοβιετικής Ένωσης.
Ankara
Οι
when
Ηνωμένες
the
Πολιτείες
Soviet Union
θέλανε
collapsed. The United
πάνω στην
States
παγκόσμια σκακέρα μια
wanted
πραγματικά ισχυρή δύναμη από πλευράς
to
έκτασης
be a
πληθυσμού,
very
στρατού
strong
και
power
και την
on the
υπερεξόπλισαν με την
international
περίφημη 10 του
chessboard.
1980
And we
Defense and
had the
Cooperation Agreement.
famous DECA, the Defense
Μεσολάβησαν
and
άλλα
Cooperation
πράγματα και
Agreement.
η
Other
Τουρκία δεν
things came
θέλησε
in the middle,
να
and
αναλάβει το
Turkey
ρόλο του
did
χωροφύλακα στην
not
Κεντρική Ασία.
accept to play the role of the gendarme in Central Asia.
Ξεκίνησε μετά με τον Οζάλ προς τη Μέση
Then
Ανατολή κτλ.
Ozar moved towards
Λοιπόν,
the
είτε αρέσει
Middle
είτε μ'
East,
αρέσει, η
etc.
Τουρκία αργά ή
Whether
γρήγορα θα
we
παίξει
like
ένα
it
τέτοιο
or not,
ρόλο.
Βέβαια η
Turkey
Τουρκία
will
τότε ήταν
play
πιο
such a role.
προσανατολισμένη
Of
προς τη
course,
Δύση, σήμερα με τον
Turkey of the
Ερντογάν
past
και με
was
Μην
more
ξεχνάμε
oriented
ότι η
to the
Τουρκία
West.
τότε μας έκανε
Let's not
όλες τις
forget
μεγάλες κρίσεις,
that
οι
Turkey at
θεμελιστές.
that time
Ο Ερντογάν έχει κάνει μόνο το roots
created a
race.
series
Αυτό
of
δεν σημαίνει ότι δεν
problems.
θα
λέω
κάνει.
για μας,
Όχι,
πολιτικές
λέω
Τουρκίας
σε
με το...
σχέση με εμάς.
Erdogan
Σε σχέση με εμάς.
was responsible only
Δεύτερον,
for the root race.
η Τουρκία, για να
Second,
έχουμε πλήρη συνείδηση,
just to have a
έχει
full
εντυπράξει ζώνη
understanding of this,
ασφαλείας τουλάχιστον 30
Turkey
χιλιόμετρων
has a
πλάτος μέσα στο
security
Ιράκ.
zone of 30
Τρίτον,
kilometers in
από το
Iraq.
1991,
Three,
το Gulf
since
War.
1991, since the
Δεύτερον,
Gulf War. Second,
έχει στρατό μέσα στη Συρία και
it
δεν πρόκειται
has
να φύγει από τη Συρία.
army in
Θα
Syria
τα βρει
and
με
they
το
won't
Ισραήλ όταν
withdraw
φύγει ο
from
Νετανιάχου.
Syria. They will reach an
Το ξέρουμε
agreement
αυτό
with
το πράγμα
Israel
και όποιος δεν το
once
καταλαβαίνει δεν θα
Netanyahu
τα βρει όπως τα βρει.
leaves the
Αλλά
government. They
και
will
το
not reach
Ισραήλ
an agreement as in
μας το
the
έχει
past, but in
δηλώσει
any case,
και
Israel
ξέρω τι
has been
λέω.
very
Δεν
clear on
θέλω να έχω
this.
απέναντι την Τουρκία. Μου φτάνουν
That
τα
I do not
εκατομμύρια, εκατοντάδες
want to
εκατομμύρια
have in
μουσουλμάνων
front
εκεί
of
εδώ γύρω.
me Turkey. I'm
Άρα,
Ακριβώς, Iran. Λοιπόν,
the millions
θέλω
of
να πω
Muslims,
ότι η Τουρκία
illegal
είναι πλέον
Muslims,
μια
are more than enough
αναβαθμισμένη
for them. So
και
Turkey
στρατιωτικά και
is an
γεωπολιτικά δύναμη, η οποία αργά ή
upgraded
γρήγορα
power
θα χρησιμοποιηθεί
politically and
και σαν
military, which
συνεργάτης,
sooner
άσχετα με
or
το
later
πρόγραμμα
will be
SAFE
used
που
as
δούλεψε ο
a
κύριος Μανιάτης
cooperator
και πολύ καλά έχει κάνει
independently
μόνος
on
του
the SAFE
για να
project
μπορέσει να
that
αποδυναμωθεί
has been
σε
elaborated
στρατιωτική
by
συνεργασία με
Mr.
την Ευρωπαϊκή
Maniatis
Ένωση.
in
Μπορεί σε ένα
cooperation
χρόνο, σε
with
2,
the
σε 5
European Union.
με τις
In
Ηνωμένες
1 to
Πολιτείες
5
και με το
years,
κομβικό ρόλο που έχει
cooperation
μέσα
with the
στον
United
ευρύτερο
States. And since
γεωπολιτικό
they
χώρο.
have a nodal
Έχει
role to
υποστεί
play
μία ήττα,
in
η
the
οποία δεν τη
wider
συζητούμε ακόμη. Είναι
geopolitical
και
area,
στρατηγική
they have
ήττα.
been
Για 2 χρόνια
defeated
έλαβε την Αίγυπτο,
strategically. For 2 years, they
επιμόρφη.
controlled Egypt
Ναι,
while
αυτό
Morsi
είναι
was in power.
κάρφος στον οφθαλμό του Ερντογάν, δευτερευόντως της
This
Τουρκίας
is
που δεν πίστευε σε
something
στρατηγικές.
unbearable for
Ήταν ευτύχημα που δεν
Erdogan.
έλεγχε, όχι για αντιπαλότητα,
Um,
λόγω αντιπαλότητας Ελλάδος-Τουρκίας, αλλά
it was
μια
very
Τουρκία η
positive.
οποία
He did not
ξαναβρίσκεται
control it because
κυριολεκτικά στα
Turkey,
πατήματα της
a
Οθωμανικής
country
Αυτοκρατορίας, με τη
which
γαλάζια
follows
πατρίδα, με την
the
ουράνια πατρίδα,
footprint
με
of
αυτά
the
που λέγανε
Ottoman
στον κύριο Κωστέλη
Empire, with the
προηγουμένως, η
blue
νοσταλγία της
homeland,
Αυτοκρατορίας
with
κτλ.
this
Εσείς
nostalgia
δεν
of
είμαστε εκεί
the
πάντως, νομίζω ότι...
imperium.
Όχι.
No, I
Λοιπόν,
don't think it
γι'
has to do
αυτό
with Sisi.
πρέπει,
No. In
πιστεύω,
any
η
case,
μόνη
this is
χώρα
why
και η
I
μόνη
believe
ηγεσία που μπορεί
the only
να
country, the only
εξορθολογήσει
leadership
το ρόλο
that
της
can
Τουρκίας είναι οι Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες,
rationalize the
κανείς
role of
άλλος.
Turkey are the
Μπορεί να την
United
κάνει
States,
χωροφύλακα της
nobody else.
περιοχής, θα την
They
κάνει,
make out of
αλλά
it a
πρέπει και γι'
gendarme
αυτό
of the
το λόμπι που
region.
είπε πριν
And
και
we
η σχέση που
mentioned
πρέπει να
about
ανέβει
the issue of the
επίπεδο και
lobby. In any
αποτελεσματικότητα με τις
case,
Ηνωμένες
our
Πολιτείες,
the
να
relation
γίνει
with the
κατανοητό στην
United
Ουάσιγκτον, τη
States
σημερινή Ουάσιγκτον,
should
ότι δεν είναι
change.
θέμα
Today's
αντιπαλότητας και
Washington
κινδύνου
should
όλα αυτά τα
understand
πράγματα.
it's not
Λάθος,
a question
η
of
οπτική τη δική
risk
μας.
or
Είναι θέμα της
opposition.
ασφάλειας και της
It's a
ειρήνης στην
question
περιοχή.
of
Μια
security
αναθεωρητική
and
δύναμη
peace
η
in the
οποία
region.
κατέχεται και
A
από σύνδρομα πλέον.
revisionist
Αλλά θα
power
παίξει
which
ρόλο
is
αναβαθμισμένο
which
στο
has
εγγύς
some
μέλλον.
syndromes. But in
Ολοκληρώσουμε τον
any
κύριο
case,
Φίλη, έχουμε
they
και
will
λίγο.
play
Θα
an
ξεπεράσουμε
upgraded
φαντάζομαι.
role in the
Επειδή
future.
είδα μορφασμό στο
Okay,
πρόσωπο με τις
Mr.
αναφορές που
Pilis,
γινόντουσαν, όχι αρνητικούς απαραίτητα, ότι θέλατε κάτι να σχολιάσετε.
seems
Ο
to
λόγος σε εσάς για να ολοκληρώσουμε τη
want
συζήτηση.
to comment. So the floor is
Η
yours, and
Τουρκία
we should finalize the discussion.
στους σχεδιασμούς
Turkey,
αμερικανικούς
according
πιστεύω
to the
ότι
American
έχει το
plans,
ρόλο
in my
ενός ιονή
opinion, has
τοποτηρητή της
a role to
περιοχής,
play of a
όπως άλλωστε και το Ισραήλ αλλά και η
quasi
Σαουδική Αραβία.
guardian
Η
of
Ελλάδα έχει
the
επενδύσει
area.
κατ' εμέ
Greece
ορθά
has
στη σχέση της με
invested
το Ισραήλ,
quite
χωρίς αυτό να σημαίνει
rightly
ότι
in
όσα συμβαίνουν στη
its
Γάζα
relations
δεν είναι
with
καταδικαστέα
Israel,
και
but
δεν
of
πρέπει να τα
course we do
καταδικάζουμε,
not,
αλλά όπως κανείς Παλαιστίνιος δεν θα
I do not
πολεμούσε
mean that we should
ή
not
δεν θα
condemn what
υπερασπιζόταν
happens
την
in
Ελλάδα,
Gaza. No
όπως
Palestinian
φάνηκε και
would
στο παρελθόν,
support Greece
για
as
τα
it has
δικά
been
του
made
συμφέροντα, έτσι και
clear
εμείς
in the past
προτάσουμε
for
τα
his
δικά μας.
own
Αυτό πρέπει
interest
να γίνει κατανοητό. Όσο
the
και αν είναι
same way,
οδυνηρό, όσο
we
και αν είναι
defend our own
απάνθρωπο
interest,
σε κάποιο
though
βαθμό,
it
μιλάμε για
might
εξωτερική
be
πολιτική,
inhuman.
η οποία
We're talking
διακατέχεται από
about
κινησμό.
foreign
Σε αυτούς λοιπόν τους τρεις
policy, which
τοποτηρητές
is
η Ελλάδα
cynical
δεν
most of the
χωράει ως
times.
τέταρτος
In these
τοποτηρητής. Να
three
μην γελιόμαστε.
guardians,
Είναι άλλα τα μεγέθη και άλλο το
Greece
εκτόπισμα.
cannot be the
Παρ'
fourth
όλα αυτά, η
guardian.
σχέση που έχουμε σφυριλατήσει με
Size
το Ισραήλ
matters.
και που αναπτύσσουμε με τη
In
Σαουδική
spite of the
Αραβία
relations
και η
we
εμπλοκή μας
have
σε διάφορα
forged
projects όπως
with
είναι ο
Israel and
διάδρομος
Saudi
IMEC.
Arabia,
Ο
now
διάδρομος IMEC έχει
participation
μια τεράστια
in the
σημασία
IMEC
πρωτίστως για τους
corridor, which
Αμερικανούς.
is very
Είναι βέβαια ένα
important,
υπερφιλόδοξο
mainly
σχέδιο.
for the Americans.
Ξεκινά
It is
από
a
την
very
Ινδία,
ambitious
περιλαμβάνει
project. It
χώρες
starts
της
from
Αραβικής
India.
Χερσονήσου, το
It
Ισραήλ,
covers countries
ενδεχομένως
of
την
the
Ελλάδα, δεν είναι ακόμα
the Arab
καθορισμένο, για να
Peninsula,
καταλήξει στην Ευρώπη. Πρέπει να δώσουμε
probably
λοιπόν μια
Israel,
μεγάλη
to
μάχη
reach
για
Europe.
ένα διάδρομο
So
πανεμπορικός,
we
ενεργειακός,
should
μεταφοράς data,
try a
μεταφοράς
lot
logistics.
for a
Να είμαστε
corridor
μέρος
which
αυτού. Θα
transfers
αναβαθμίσει οπωσδήποτε το
data
γεωπολιτικό μας
logistics.
ρόλο.
We should
Επίσης
be
πρέπει
part
να
of it in order to
επενδύσουμε, κύριε
upgrade our
Έλλης, στα δικά
geopolitical
μας
role.
συγκριτικά
Mr.
πλεονεκτήματα,
Ellis, we
τα
should
οποία σήμερα που
invest in
μιλάμε,
our
σε
comparative
ένα
advantages.
περιβάλλον όπου
Today,
ορίζεται από τον πρόεδρο
within
Τραμπ,
a
να μην
milieu
γελιόμαστε.
which
Είδαμε τι
is
συνέβη στη Σύνοδο
defined
του ΝΑΤΟ, είδαμε
by
τι συνέβη στη
President
Μέση
Trump,
Ανατολή
we
και
saw
βλέπουμε
what
τι συμβαίνει στην
happened
Ουκρανία. Ακόμα
at
και η
the NATO
απροθυμία του να πιέσει
conference,
τον
what
Πούτιν
happens
έχει το
in
αποτέλεσμα το
the
οποίο
Middle East or
διαπιστώνουμε.
Ukraine.
Πρέπει
He is
λοιπόν να
reluctant
επενδύσουμε πάρα πολύ στη
in
θέση που η
exerting
χώρα
any
μας έχει
pressures
στον
upon
ενεργειακό
Putin.
χάρτη
So we
και αυτό
should
βέβαια
invest
εκκινεί από
in
τις
the
πολιτικές, όλοι τον
energy
αναφέρουμε τον κύριο Μανιάτη,
map,
δεν ξέρω
and
πραγματικά
this,
δηλαδή σε αυτό το
of course, everyone quotes
σήμερα και
here
χθες οι
Mr.
αναφορές είναι μόνιμες. Ξεκίνησε
Maniatis.
πράγματι από τον
But
κύριο
in any
Μανιάτη, τον
case,
Γιάννη,
a lot
και
started from
συνεχίστηκε βέβαια
Mr.
και
Maniatis,
αυτό
and of
πρέπει να το
course,
πιστώσουμε
it
σχεδόν σε όλες τις
continued,
κυβερνήσεις.
and
Πάντως
we
αυτό που θέλω να
should
πω είναι ότι η
pay
Ελλάδα πρέπει να
tribute to all
επενδύσει
the governments.
και
In any
στην
case,
Αλεξανδρούπολη,
Greece
η οποία
should invest
Αλεξανδρούπολη
both in
ενδεχομένως να μην έχει πλέον τόσο
Alexandroupoli.
μεγάλη σημασία
Probably
για το κομμάτι
Alexandroupolis is
της
not so
Ουκρανίας,
important
αλλά έχει
for
μεγάλη αξία για τη
Ukraine,
δημιουργία
but
ενός
it is
διαδρόμου,
very
ο οποίος θα
important for the
συνδέει την
creation of a
Αλεξανδρούπολη και το
corridor
Αιγαίο
which
με τη
will
Μαύρη
connect
Θάλασσα, με
Alexandroupolis,
σιδηροδρομικούς και οδικούς
the
άξονες, στα
Aegean and the
παρακάτητα
Black
στενά.
Sea
Μην
through
βγει κανείς στον
rail
δρόμο να πανηγυρίσει
and
γι' αυτό. Δεν είναι ότι η παράκαμψη των στενών θα είναι κάτι
road
θεαματικό,
should
αλλά πάντως θα είναι μια
bypass
μικρή συνεισφορά
the
στην παράκαμψη
straits.
των
In
στενών.
any case, it
Πρέπει
will be a
επίσης να
great
δούμε την Ελλάδα ως
contribution
σημείο αναφοράς και
to
ολοκληρώνω με
the
αυτό σε σχέση με
bypassing of
τα
the straits.
ενεργειακά σχέδια της
We
περιοχής,
and
είτε
the
ως
energy
διαμετακομιστή,
projects of the
είτε ως χώρα
area
η
are
οποία
very
θα
important
διαθέτει
as a transporter
φυσικό
or
αέριο ή
as
και
a
ανανεώσιμες
country
πηγές
which
ενέργειας,
will
γιατί
has
έχουμε μια
renewable
περιοχή
sources of
στη βόρεια
energy or
γειτονιά μας, αυτή
natural
της
gas
νοτιοανατολικής
because
Ευρώπης
there
και
is
μερικώς της
an
ανατολικής
area
Ευρώπης που είναι εντελώς
close
ανώριμη
to us
ενεργειακά. Εμείς
of
μπορούμε να την
this
τροφοδοτήσουμε και μπορούμε να
southeastern
αναβαθμιστούμε
Europe,
γεωπολιτικά
and
μέσα
we
από αυτές
can
τις
upgrade
εξελίξεις. Αυτά
geopolitically
είναι για την
through
ώρα τα
these
συγκριτικά μας
developments.
πλεονεκτήματα.
For
Συν
the time being,
ότι
these are our
η ελληνική
comparative
ναυτιλία κατέχει
advantages,
περίπου το 60%,
and
κύριε
of
Μανιάτη,
course,
των
the fact
LNG
that
που
the
θα
Greek
μεταφέρουν δηλαδή υγροποιημένο φυσικό αέριο ανά τον κόσμο, κάτι το οποίο επίσης ενδιαφέρει τον πρόεδρο Τραμπ, πολλό δε μάλλον από τη
the
στιγμή που
Greek
θέλει να
shipping
πολλαπλασιάσει τις
has
εξαγωγές LNG μεταξύ άλλων και
60%
προς την Ευρώπη.
over the transport of
Ολοκληρώναμε,
LNG in
αλλά
Europe.
ακούω, επειδή προφανώς είναι πολύ
Well,
ενδιαφέρουσα
I see
συζήτηση,
that
μας δίνουν κάποια
there's a lot of
λεπτά,
interest in this
επιλέγω
dialogue,
να τα
so
προσφέρω
we're
στον
given some extra
πρέσβη
minutes,
των
and I'm going
ΗΠΑ.
to offer them to
To
the
ask
US,
you,
former US ambassador. Comments off the microphone. I can't hear what the gentleman is saying. I'm very sorry.
Συνεχίζουμε εμείς, φεύγει, δεν παρεξηγούμε
Okay,
εννοείται.
fine. So Mr. Phyllis is leaving, no
Ambassador,
problem.
your take
We'll-
on next week, no, actually this week, Mrs. Guilfoyle will go in front of the Senate, the Foreign Relations Committee. You've been an ambassador to Greece. The US has been for 5-6 months without an ambassador. I would like in a couple of minutes your take. What does it mean for the US not having an ambassador for like 6 months? And how do you see her work, if she's confirmed, in today's world, given the administration, given the relations and all what we've discussed here with the regional issues? She's not a career diplomat. She's a political appointee. Makes it a little bit more difficult, maybe. You tell us.
Well, I'm going to assume she's going to go before the Senate, and I'm going to assume she'll be confirmed. Because if President Trump can get that tax bill through, her confirmation should be very, very easy. Very, very easy. And all of his candidates have been confirmed. So I assume she'll get confirmed. She'll come out here. I've never met her. I don't know her. She's the first ambassador since Stearns, that I don't know, and I haven't talked to her. But I've read about her. She's a smart woman. She's a lawyer. She was a prosecutor before, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. An ambassador, an American ambassador, can do well in Greece if they listen, and an American ambassador will not do well if they're only on send, if they only preach. I've seen this over the years. Greece is a very unique country with, as we've been talking about here today, many unique issues and ways of approaching these issues. And if you don't understand that as the American ambassador, you are going to fail. If you do understand that, you'll be okay. I'm not worried about her being a political appointee as opposed to a career person. I was a career person. Most of my predecessors did diplomacy for a career. George Souness came out here. He was a political appointee. He did okay. So I think a smart political appointee can do okay. Now, I gave an interview in Kathimerini a couple weeks ago, and the headline was "Don't Preach the MAGA" line. I didn't make a big deal of that in the interview, but when she was interviewed, the only time that I've seen her in public, and they asked her what her agenda in Greece was going to be, she said, "I'm going to try to get Greece to buy into something to the effect of buy into the MAGA, Make America Great Again, the Trump ethos, the Trump kind of policy line." And I said, and I really believe this strongly, don't do that. It's not going to work here. The MAGA line is anti-diversity. This is a country that takes great strength in its diversity. The MAGA line is anti-immigration. You've, in many ways, been on the front lines of immigration. You've handled it as best as any country can. It's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And so my sense is if she listens, she'll do fine. If she preaches, she will not do fine.
On that, I guess, happy note, uplifting note, hopeful, we came to an end for this discussion. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Thank you, Ambassador. Και τώρα να καλέσω στη σκηνή τον κύριο Φάνη Παπαθανασίου.
Thank you very much. And now I kindly ask Mr. Fánis Papanasiou for an online discussion with Mr. John Katsimantidis.
Λοιπόν, γεια σας και πάλι.
Hello again.
Θα παρακολουθήσουμε τώρα μια
Now we're going to have we'll watch actually a discussion with Mr. John Katsimantidis, who, as you know, is very close to the US President, well-known businessman. He was born in Nisyros, so what he says is quite important regarding the dialogues of Nisyros Dialogues and Panagiotis, as well as the Yorgos Michalos Foundation. We asked him, first of all, what Nisyros means to him and everything he has achieved in his career. We also asked him to give a stock, give an account of the first 6 months of the Trump administration, the Greek-American relations, and how President Trump thinks the issue of Greece and Turkey. And Mrs. Guilfoyle, the proposed US ambassador, as we know, John confirmed this. She will be confirmed on the 9th of July by the Senate. Mr. Katsimantidis will accompany her in this process before the Senate. So let's watch what John Katsimantidis told us.
John, good morning. Thank you for being with us. Nice setting. You have your proof there, how far you want to go. And you have come a long way achieving what you have in the States. We will start with Nisyros. What does Nisyros mean to you personally, and how has your heritage shaped your achievements?
Well, Panagiotis, Mihalos, thank you so much for inviting me to be on with you today, and to all our guests down in Nisyros. I feel Nisyros is my home. I feel that I was born there, and anytime I am in Nisyros, I feel my grandparents and my great-grandparents looking down upon me, and I love being there, and I wish I could be there more often. President Trump ascended to the presidency in January 20th. He has done a phenomenal job. You have to remember something. Under the previous president, President Biden, had a lot of problems, and I'm not sure who was running the country in the last year or two. President Trump came in, took command of the situation, and he made the free world free. Not only does he worry about the United States of America, he worries about the free world. And without President Trump being in Washington, being tough, I would say Europe would have their own set of problems, and the free world would have their own set of problems. I do believe that he is tough, but he knows what he wants to do. He wants to keep the free world free, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job. What he did with Iran, you cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. Look what Iran did with the Hamas, with the Hezbollah, with the Houthis. If Iran had nuclear weapons, people around the world would be afraid that they would share them with other terrorist groups.
What is your overall assessment regarding the United States economy during the first 6 months of Donald Trump's term?
What President Trump wants to do is equalize. He wants to make sure the United States of America gets a good deal, but he doesn't want to abuse any of its allies. So he wants to make sure the United States gets the proper deal, whether it's cars, whether it's agriculture products, and he worries about America. But at the same time, he wants to make a fair deal for its allies and us.
Let's move to Greece now. How do you think the new Trump administration would view Greece as a strategic partner in the region?
President Trump is sending Kimberly Guilfoyle to become ambassador to Greece. I believe that Kimberly will be there, and she's looking very forward to it. I talked to her yesterday and the day before, and she's looking forward to it. Things are on track, they're on schedule, and the advantage of having Kimberly Guilfoyle there, she was a member of the Trump family, and she has the ability to pick up the telephone and talk to President Trump directly without going through middle people. And to have the ability to talk to the president directly, I think not too many other ambassadors have that ability.
Following on this, what advice would you give to the Greek government on building a strong and effective relationship with the White House?
You know, President Trump is one tough person. And he wants to have a relationship with all the NATO countries. He wants to have a relationship with all countries. So I believe that if you have the same philosophies on keeping the free world free, that President Trump will sit down with you at the same table and make a fair deal with anybody. I believe he loves Greece, and I believe he would make a fair deal with Greece.
And now, Greece and Turkey. Some people in Greece see a close relationship between President Trump and President Erdogan. Does this reflect Washington's broader view of Ankara, in your opinion?
President Trump looks at Turkey and President Erdogan as a strategic partner in the area. Don't forget, they have many, it's a very big territory. It's strategic between Iran and Israel and that whole area. So they have to have cooperation between the two. But President Trump, I know because we've discussed it, will never allow anything to happen in between Greece and Turkey, both NATO nations. And President Trump is not a warmonger. President Trump is a person of peace. He wants to avoid war. He wants to avoid conflict. He has managed to stop wars. He gave Iran 60 days. And when they didn't cooperate, on the 61st day, he took action. So he wants peace. He wants allies to cooperate and work together. He wants NATO to work together. He wants the European community to work together. And the European community and NATO, especially European community, I believe President Trump is going to keep the free world free. And that's very important, because he will not allow the dictators of the world to hurt NATO or the European community.
Now let's move on to the energy sector. Is it possible or even necessary for the United States to lead in both traditional energy sources and next generation technologies like nuclear?
President Trump wants to make sure North America, United States, Canada, lead in energy. And I personally believe that the planet Earth is different than some of the environmentalists think. The planet Earth has existed for 4 billion years. It changes over a long period of time. And it just doesn't change decade to decade. So I believe that we want the planet Earth to be well, but that we're not going to sacrifice the United States economy while other countries like China do not cooperate with the economy. The United States of America wants to do the right thing. Fossil fuels are going to be with us into the next 50 years, 100 years, but there's alternatives. The new green energy is going to be nuclear. And everybody has accepted that. And what we're doing is SMRs, small modular reactors. What the SMRs are, for everybody to understand, is the same nuclear engines that powered submarines and power on nuclear aircraft carriers. And they've been in operation for over 50 years, 60 years. Those are going to be converted for land use. And that's, instead of calling them small nuclear reactors, taking the nuclear engines from the submarines, we're calling them small modular reactors. But it's going to happen over 10, 20, 30 years. I believe that Canada, Ontario is leading in it. The United States is starting to lead in it. And that's the energy of the future. So over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we're going to have more nuclear energy and less oil energy. And what we got to think about is, everybody called it fossil fuels. I don't believe they're fossil fuels. I believe that the oil that we take out of the ground is produced by the planet Earth to create more moisture in between the plaques of the planet Earth being able to move. And in areas where you take out too much oil in any one particular area, that's when you have earthquakes. So the planet Earth replaces that oil, but it takes time. So if you take it out too fast, that's when you have earthquakes, and that's when you have a problem.
John, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. And I look forward to maybe next year being together And I love Nisyros, and I will be in Nisyros maybe later on this summer. So my heart belongs with you, belongs in the place where my grandfathers came from, and my great-grandfathers, and my father and mother. I look forward to seeing you real soon.
So thank you very much for this interesting interview. Let me now call Mr. Konstantinos Mathiudakis and Mr. Yannis Papamakriles, Mr. Yannis Papageorgiou to talk about new wealth-producing energy sources.
Θα ξεκινήσουμε όμως και βλέπετε ήδη στις οθόνες σας τον κύριο Χρήστο Ζερεφό, Γενικό Γραμματέα της Ακαδημίας Αθηνών.
You can see Mr. Christos Zerefos, General Secretary of the Academy of Athens. Good afternoon. It is a great honor to see you, even online. Good afternoon. I would like to personally thank Mr. Michalos and the organizers for their invitation.
Πολύ διδακτική παρακολούθηση της προηγούμενης
Following the previous discussion has been highly instructive.
Μεταξύ όλων και ιδιαίτερα των Ελλήνων οι οποίοι
I really enjoyed the interventions by Greek living abroad. Let's start from our topic. The demand for energy has changed its seasonality. In the past, we asked for energy in the winter time. Now we badly need it during the summer time. Since we have the overheating of the planet, which is really unprecedented. Let's see the first slide.
Ακόμα και αν δεν φαίνεται διαφάνεια, κύριε καθηγητά, μπορείτε να σας ακούμε.
Okay, you can go on and we wait for the slide.
Ευχαριστώ.
Thank you.
Το θέμα της δικής μου παρεμβάσεως είναι
The
αυτή
topic of my intervention
κλιματική κρίση
is
και
the
η
climate
κρίση
crisis
στο ενεργειακό μείγμα
and
το
the
οποίο
energy mixture
ζήτησε
crisis
και ζητά η Συμφωνία των Παρισίων.
as around the Paris Agreement. So we can see on the first slide this development.
Δεν ξέρω ποιος χειρίζεται τις...
Θα έρθει διαφάνεια, σας ακούμε όμως παρόλα αυτά.
Okay, we can follow you. We can follow you. Go ahead. The first slide. On the first slide, you can see the development of temperatures in the Mediterranean.
Δεν είναι αυτή η πρώτη διαφάνεια.
This is not my first slide.
Όποιος κύριος ή κυρία...
Okay, the colleagues will find it. Just give us a bit of time.
Αλλά είναι ανακατεμένα, καταλάβατε.
Okay, they've been mixed up.
Τώρα τι βλέπουμε.
What do we see now?
Το μέλλον,
Now we see the future. How things will develop in the future, temperature-wise. We are going the other way around.
Είναι ο καλύτερος τρόπος για να
This is the best way to destroy a presentation. You can display them yourself. Okay, no problem.
Βλέπετε, παρακαλώ. Θα ολοκληρώσω γρήγορα γιατί ούτως ή άλλως έχουμε καθυστερήσει.
Okay,
Εδώ βλέπετε τη θερμοκρασία πάνω από
I
την
will
Τζιρά
be
και
very
από τη
short. You can
θάλασσα
see
στη
the
Μεσόγειο
temperature
τα τελευταία
above the sea
75 χρόνια.
and the
Το
land during the
ενδιαφέρον
last
είναι
75
ότι
years. What is
τα
interested
τελευταία 30 χρόνια
is during the last
υπάρχει
30
μία
years,
συνεχής
we
υπερθέρμανση
have
η
witnessed a
οποία είναι
continuous overheating,
πάνω από 2,5 βαθμούς Κελσίου
which is
πάνω από
more
την
than
Τζιρά και
2.5
σχεδόν το ίδιο
Celsius
πάνω από τη θάλασσα
grades
και
um,
κάθε
in the
χρόνος
land and
είναι
the sea,
θερμότερος από τον
and
προηγούμενο.
every
Η
year is
επόμενη
warmer
διαφάνεια
compared to the past
δείχνει,
year. On the next slide,
συγγνώμη, δεν έχω τρόπο να το χειριστώ
I'm
από εδώ
really
που είμαι,
sorry.
επομένως
I have
πρέπει κάποιος
no
να
way to
αλλάζει τα
manage it from
slides.
here. Somebody should change the slides.
Το επόμενο slide παρακαλώ.
Okay, the next slide, please.
Εδώ βλέπουμε τα τελευταία 4 χρόνια, τα προηγούμενα,
Okay, let's
21,
see
22, 23,
the years 21,
24,
22, 23,
όπου βλέπετε
24. You
συνεχώς
can see
είμαστε στο κόκκινο. Το κόκκινο τι σημαίνει?
uh,
Σημαίνει
there is
πάνω από
red
3
all over.
βαθμούς
It
Κελσίου,
means more
Ιούλιο-Αύγουστο,
than 3
ενώ
Celsius
η Συμφωνία
degrees
των
in July
Παρισίων,
and
όπως
August,
ξέρετε,
while
προβλέπει
the
για
Paris
ολόκληρο το έτος
Agreement
να είμαστε πάνω από
forces
1,5 βαθμό
no
Κελσίου.
more than
Η
1.5
επόμενη διαφάνεια
Celsius
παρακαλώ
grades. The next slide.
δείχνει ότι αυτή η υπερθέρμανση που
Here we can see
ζούμε
that
αυτά
this
τα 4 χρόνια και φέτος το
overheating
ίδιο,
we are
παρακαλώ
living
κάποιος να αλλάξει τη
through these
διαφάνεια,
4 years and this year as well.
παρακαλώ
Will you
κάποιος να
please
προχωρήσει στην επόμενη
change the
διαφάνεια.
slide? Okay.
Δεν είναι αυτή, τέλος πάντων ας πούμε ότι
It
είναι
is not
αυτή
the one I
και στο
wanted.
μέλλον θα συνεχιστεί
In
δυστυχώς
the
αυτή η
future,
υπερθέρμανση.
fortunately, this
Αριστερά
overheating will
είναι
continue.
μοντέλα τα
On
οποία
the left,
χρησιμοποιούμε
you
στην
can
τράπεζα
see
της
models
Ελλάδας
that we
για την
use in the
εκτίμηση
Bank of
του
Greece
κόστους κλιματικής
in order to
αλλαγής,
assess the
το
cost of
οποίο
the
στην περίπτωση
climate
της χώρας
change,
μας, αν
which
δεν
in
κάνουμε
the
τίποτα,
case of our
θα
country,
κοστίσει
if we do not do anything,
εκατοντάδες
will cost
δισεκατομμυρίων ευρώ
hundreds of
παγκοσμίως. Το
billions of
κόστος, αν δεν
euro.
κάνουμε τίποτα, που
Globally,
είναι
the
το
cost,
δεξιό
if we
σενάριο,
do
το
nothing, and this
κόστος
is
θα
the
υπερβεί τα
right scenario,
133
will go
εκατομμύρια
beyond
δολάρια. Να σκεφτούμε
133
εδώ ότι ο COVID
trillion
κόστισε
dollars.
περίπου
COVID
1, 2,
costed
3.
1
Σκεφτείτε 130. Το
0.2
αριστερό σενάριο
trillion.
είναι η
Imagine
Συμφωνία των
what
Παρισίων.
130 trillion
Η
means. The
επόμενη
left
διαφάνεια
scenario is the
παρακαλώ.
Paris Agreement. Next slide.
Είναι από το γραφείο σας μου λένε που χειρίζονται τις διαφάνειες και όχι από εδώ.
It is your
Κάποιος δεν
office
παρακολουθεί το
which
τέτοιο βλέπω.
manages the slides.
Σας ακούμε όμως κύριε Δελεχέ, σας ακούμε.
Okay, we can hear you.
Ίσως να τέλος πάντων η Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή μας ζήτησε
The
μέσω της
European
εταιρείας
Commission
Aquila
has asked
από την
us
κυρία
through
Φόντερ
the
Λάιεν μια
Aquila
ομάδα
Group
εμπειρογνωμόνων να
to
υπολογίσουμε
uh,
εάν υπάρχει ενεργειακή
ask a group
αυτοδυναμία της
of
Ευρώπης
experts
μέσω των
to see
ανανεώσιμων
whether
πηγών
there
ενέργειας
is an energy autonomy of
στα
Europe through
προσεχή
the
χρόνια,
renewable
δηλαδή μέχρι το
sources of
30,
energy in the
αν
future, that
πάμε
is
στην
till
πρώτη διαφάνεια
2030.
παρακαλώ,
Let's
μέχρι
go
το
to the
30, το
first slide from
2030 θα πρέπει
2030.
σύμφωνα με τη Συμφωνία των
According
Παρισίων
to the
να
Paris
απαλλαγούμε
Agreement,
κατά 80%
we should get rid
από το
of
ενεργειακό μείγμα μας το
80%
σημερινό που
of
στηρίζεται
today's
σε
energy
ορυκτά καύσιμα
mixture
και να
based
τα
on
αντικαταστήσουμε
fossil
με
fuels and
ανανεώσιμες
replace
πηγές
them with
ενέργειας.
renewable sources of
Η
energy.
Μεσόγειος, και εδώ έχω χαρακτηριστικές
The
χώρες της
Mediterranean,
Μεσογείου,
and here you can see some Mediterranean
δέχεται,
countries,
όπως ξέρουμε, σχεδόν 500
as you
βάτ ανά
know,
τετραγωνικό μέτρο από
is
τον ήλιο
getting 500
το
watts per square
καλοκαίρι,
meter
ειδικά εμείς στη
from
χώρα μας
the sun
δεχόμαστε, έχουμε
during the
όπως το λέω πολλές
summertime.
φορές,
In our
έχουμε
country,
δύο
we
ήλιους.
have
Τον
two
ήλιο που μας
suns.
στέλνει 500 βάτ
The
ανά
sun
τετραγωνικό
send
μέτρο,
us
που είναι
500
μεγάλη
watts per
ποσότητα,
square meter,
και
which is a
έχουμε
very
και τον
large
άνεμο, ο
quantity, and
οποίος
then
μας δίνει
wind.
άλλα τόσα. Γι'
Wind
αυτό
gives us
λέω
the same
χαριτολογώντας
quantity,
ότι
more or
έχουμε
less. So this is why
δύο
I'm
ήλιους.
saying that we
Το
have two
ηλιακό δυναμικό
suns.
λοιπόν,
The
όπως
solar
ξέρετε,
dynamic
μπορεί
in the solar potential can substitute a large part of our needs
και μείωση δηλαδή της
and
χρήσης
enable us
των
to decrease
υδρογοναθράκων.
the use of
αιωλικό
hydrocarbons.
δυναμικό που είναι η
The
επόμενη
wind
διαφάνεια.
potential, the next
Εδώ
slide
είδαμε
please.
τις 4 χώρες. Το
Here we have seen the 4
επόμενο
countries. Next slide.
διάγραμμα, η
Next
επόμενη
diagram.
διαφάνεια δείχνει το αιωλικό δυναμικό.
Here we can see the wind potential
Και γενικά
and
βλέπουμε ότι
here we can see
υπάρχει αιωλικό
that
δυναμικό όχι μόνο σε
there
εμάς,
is
στις
a
εκκλησίες,
wind
δηλαδή τα
potential
Βαλκάνια, αλλά υπάρχει
not
και στη
only
Γαλλία ο
as far as
Μιστράλ
Greece
και
is
σε
concerned,
άλλες
but we have in
περιοχές
France as well.
σημαντικό αιωλικό
There is
δυναμικό,
Mistral
ιδιαίτερα και
and in
στις
other areas,
εκτός
particularly
ακτής
in areas
εγκαταστάσεις. Η επόμενη
where there are
διαφάνεια δείχνει
establishments
ότι και
off
οι άλλες
shore.
πηγές ενέργειας τις
We
οποίες
can see that
έχουμε στην
in the next slide,
Μεσόγειο,
the other sources of
ανανεώσιμες
energy, we
πηγές
have
ενέργειας,
renewable sources of energy.
όπως είναι
We have in the
οι
Mediterranean as,
υδατοκπτώσεις,
for example,
όπως είναι η
waterfalls,
υδροηλεκτρική λεγόμενη ενέργεια.
hydroelectric
Εδώ
energy.
είναι ένα δείγμα από
Here
την εγκατάσταση στη
we have a
Γαλλία, όπου
sample from
εκμεταλλεύονται την βαρύτητα.
in France, where they
Όταν
take
δεν φυσάει
advantage
άνεμος,
of gravity,
τότε
where there is no wind
αδειάζουν
blowing.
οι
Then
υδροηλεκτρικές
they empty
εγκαταστάσεις
the
και
hydroelectric
αποδίδουν την ενέργεια που χρειάζεται και
installation,
βεβαίως η
and they give the
γεωθερμία.
energy
Εκεί στη
needed, and of
Νήσιρο
course
κάθεστε πάνω σε ένα
geothermy.
από τα πιο
In
ενδιαφέροντα,
Nisyros, you
η
are
επόμενη
sitting
διαφάνεια
on one of the
παρακαλώ,
most interesting
γεωθερμικά πεδία
geothermal fields
που έχει η Ευρώπη.
of Europe.
Μιλάω για την
I'm
ηφαιστειακή
talking about the
υποδομή,
volcanic
το
infrastructure,
υπόβαθρο, η οποία όμως παρότι
which,
βεβαίως ένα ηφαίστειο έχει τεράστιες
of
δυνατότητες
course, a volcano
και
has
η γύρω
enormous
περιοχή του τεράστιες δυνατότητες
possibilities, and
γεωθερμίας.
there are
Στη χώρα
enormous
μας δεν την
possibilities in the
εκμεταλλευόμαστε
field of
όσο θα
geothermia. In our
έπρεπε.
country, do not
Η
take full
επόμενη, δηλαδή
advantage of
η
all
γεωθερμία
this.
που βλέπετε εδώ είναι 200
Geothermy, as you
milliwatt
realize,
στο τετραγωνικό
is
μέτρο,
900
δηλαδή 200
milliwatt per square
χιλιοστόβατα,
meter,
όταν
that is
η
200 millimeters of
ηλιακή ενέργεια
watt,
είναι 500
while the
watt.
solar energy is 500
Η επόμενη
watts.
διαφάνεια
The
παρακαλώ
next
δείχνει
slide here.
παρακαλώ την επόμενη διαφάνεια.
Next slide.
Παρακαλώ την επόμενη διαφάνεια.
The next
Δείχνει
slide.
την ενέργεια
Here
των
you can
θαλασσίων
see
κυμάτων, η
the
οποία
energy
είναι
of
επίσης σημαντική,
the sea waves,
είναι
which is
υπολείπεται
equally
και αυτή
important, but of
του
course it
ηλίου. Η
lags
επόμενη διαφάνεια
behind
παρακαλώ.
compared to the solar energy. Next slide.
Η επόμενη διαφάνεια παρακαλώ.
The next slide.
Δείχνει τις εκτιμήσεις
We can see the assessments
των επενδύσεων στις
concerning
οποίες έχουμε
the
καταλήξει
investments
και τις οποίες έχουμε
we have
παραδώσει
decided,
στους ειδικούς της
and
Ευρωπαϊκής
we
Επιτροπής
have
και ιδιαίτερα
forwarded
στην,
to those
έχει λάβει
responsible
υπόψη
of the
της η κυρία
European
Φόντερ
Union.
Λάιεν.
Mr. von der Leyen
Είναι
has taken them
μια
into
έκθεση η
account.
οποία
This is a
συμπεριελήφθη
report
μαζί με την
which has
έκθεση
been
για τις
included
πυρκαγιές
together
στη
with the
Μεσό
report
στις
on
συζητήσεις
wildfires
που είχαν
to
οι
the
G7 πριν
discussions
από 2
conducted by
εβδομάδες.
G7
Μάλιστα,
some
τα
weeks
συμπεράσματα του
ago.
G7, όπως
The
ξέρετε, τα
conclusions of
προσυπέγραψαν και οι Ηνωμένες
G7
Πολιτείες
have
της
been
Αμερικής.
undersigned by the
Εδώ είναι
United
το
States of
κόστος σε
America. Here
δισεκατομμύρια
we can
ευρώ
see the cost in
έτος
billion of
δαπανήθηκε ή
Europe
θα δαπανηθεί, έχει
annually
προβλεφθεί
that have been spent or will be
για την
spent have been
ανάπτυξη
earmarked
των ανανεώσιμων
for the
πηγών στον τομέα
development of
της
the
ηλεκτρικής
renewable sources of
ενέργειας.
energy in the field of
Βλέπετε ότι σιγά σιγά
electric
αρχίζει να
energy.
αυξάνει και το
Little by
αιωλικό
little,
δυναμικό
you realize that the
και
solar
να
potential
μειώνονται
increases
οι
and
δαπάνες για τα
expenditure
φωτοβολταϊκά, τα
on
οποία πλέον
solar
έχουν καθιερωθεί
panels decrease. The
και η
solar panels
πυκνότητά
have
τους είναι
established themselves
αρκετά
and they have reached
σημαντική.
quite
Το συμπέρασμα είναι
considerable
ότι
density. The
μπορούμε
conclusion we
στην
can draw
Ευρώπη
is that in
να
Europe
αντικαταστήσουμε το
we can
ενεργειακό μείγμα
substitute
μέχρι
our
το
energy
2030, δηλαδή στην
mix
απευθεχή 5 χρόνια,
till
κατά
2030
80%
by
από ανανεώσιμες πηγές
90% from
ενέργειας.
renewable
Η
sources of
επόμενη
energy.
φάση που
The
θα
next
πάει το
stage,
2050, στην
that
οποία θα
is
πρέπει να
that of
απαλλαγούμε εντελώς από
2050,
τα
where we
ορυκτά
should
καύσιμα, αυτό θα
get completely
εξαρτηθεί
rid
από
of fossil
πάρα
fuels,
πολλές
will
ενδιάμεσες
depend
λύσεις,
on
τις
many
οποίες θα αναπτύξει η
intermediary
Ευρωπαϊκή
solutions
Ένωση
that
μέχρι
will
το
be promoted
2050.
by the European Union
Η
till
τεχνολογική
2050.
εξάρτηση
The
της
technologic
Ευρώπης από
dependence of
χώρες
Europe
εκτός Ευρωπαϊκής
from
Ένωσης,
countries,
γιατί τα στοιχεία,
from
οι σπάνιες
non-European
γέες που
Union
χρειάζονται,
countries,
είδατε γίνεται
because
τόση
the rare
συζήτηση
earths,
τώρα με τους
values,
πολέμους
elements
και τις ορέξεις
widely
διαφόρων χωρών
discussed
να
as a result of the
κατακτήσουν άλλες
wars
χώρες που
and
διαθέτουν
the
τέτοια
persistence
προϊόντα όπως
on
τις
various
σπάνιες
countries
γέες,
to conquer the countries that
γιατί οι
have these
πόλεμοι για
rare
χρήματα γίνονται,
earths,
είναι
because of
προφανές.
course wars are waged for
Έχουμε
economic
την,
reasons.
δυστυχώς σήμερα την εξάρτηση
Unfortunately,
εκτός της
today
Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης,
we
ιδιαίτερα για
have
εξαρτήματα ανανεώσιμων
dependence
συστημάτων
on
ενέργειας
equipment of renewable
από
sources of
τρίτες
energy,
χώρες. Η
on spare
Κίνα
parts
εδώ
from
καταλαμβάνει
third
μπαταρίες,
countries.
καταλαμβάνει
And this concerns
ένα
panels.
σημαντικό ρόλο.
Uh,
Αυτά είχα να
and
πω.
here China plays a very
Είμαστε
important role.
θεωρητικά, μπορούμε να
Theoretically
είμαστε
speaking,
ανεξάρτητοι
we can be
από τα ορυκτά
independent
καύσιμα
from
και με τη
fossil
γνώση και
fuel
τις
and
αποφάσεις και την αποφασιστικότητα που χαρακτηρίζει τις χώρες μέλη της Ευρώπης.
if we have a
Αυτό είναι το
decisive
εξώφυλλο της
attitude,
μελέτης
well,
αυτής
this is
στην οποία
the cover
αναφέρθηκα.
of the study I presented.
Η δική μας αποφασιστικότητα
Our
νομίζω θα
decisiveness,
αποτελέσει
I believe,
φάρο
will
και
constitute
για
a
τις άλλες
lighthouse
χώρες. Το ότι οι
for
Ηνωμένες
the
Πολιτείες της
other countries.
Αμερικής
The fact that the United
αποχωρούν από τη
States of
Συμφωνία
America
των Παρισίων
are about to
δεν
withdraw
νομίζω ότι
from
θα
the Paris
επηρεάσει το μέλλον
Agreement will not have an impact
αυτής της
on
ανάγκης
the
να πάρουμε
future
μέτρα,
of our
διότι
needed to take
συνεχώς θα έχουμε
measures
όλο και
because we
μεγαλύτερους,
will
εντονότερους
continuously have
και πιο
stronger
θανατηφόρους
and
καύσονες,
stronger and more
συνεχώς θα έχουμε
lethal
πλημμύρες και
heat waves
ξηρασίες
or
οι οποίες
floods
πλήττουν
or
σήμερα όλη
droughts
την ανθρωπότητα. Σας
which
ευχαριστώ πολύ.
are a blow for all mankind.
Thank you very much. There was a short delay with the slides, but we saw them all, and especially we heard you. Thank you for your intervention. I know that you have got previous engagement, so we hope that next year
Εάν
you will be
υπάρχει
here with
κάποια
us. If there
ερώτηση,
are any
μπορώ να
questions, I
κάποιες
am available
ερωτήσεις,
to
μπορώ
answer
να
them
τις δεχθώ ευχαρίστως πριν αποχωρήσω.
before I leave.
Όχι, δεν δεχόμαστε ερωτήσεις. Μπορώ όμως, αν
No,
θέλετε,
there
να
is
επικοινωνήσω
no
με το γραφείο σας, να δώσετε κάποιο mail. Όποιος
session
έχει
here,
κάποια
but
ερώτηση, να σας στείλει κάποιο mail όταν ολοκληρωθεί
perhaps we can
η
give your
διάλεξη.
email to people to
Ευχαριστώ.
send any
Ευχαριστούμε
questions.
πολύ.
Okay,
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
thank you.
Ευχαριστώ.
Thank you very much.
Ερχόμαστε λοιπόν τώρα εδώ
So we come
και να
here
δούμε
now.
τη ΔΕΠΑ πώς τα βλέπει όλα αυτά. Ακούσαμε
And
πολύ
how does
ενδιαφέρον.
DEPA sees all that? Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this invitation and congratulate Mr. Michalos for this excellent organization. Before I came here, I refreshed my knowledge of Greek mythology, and as I read that the angry Poseidon took part of course and threw it at giant Polydodus, then I couldn't resist thinking that if this is not the myth of the geothermal energy, then what is it? Well, things have changed. We're not chasing giants, we're chasing solutions for clean energy and for systems that can withstand volatility. Eastern Mediterranean, where we are, is not simply an area of deposits and reserves. It is a hub of FSRU and fossil wealth, as well as fragile balances. All this, coupled with the tensions, determine the discussion around energy security. To respond to the new challenges, DEPA trading had to transform itself in motion from a traditionally natural gas company. It currently is being transformed into an energy company which is fully vertical, with energy generation from solar panels and PVs, which do exist, and it's been increasing from future CCGT projects in Larissa and Alexandroupoli and other projects. We take steps in order to transform ourselves. Security is not for granted, cannot be taken for granted, and we saw that in 2021-2022 when the energy crisis proved that the institutional agencies that combine public control and capabilities can act as a shield for consumers and society. Now, through diversification of resources and the international and trading on the international markets in a difficult and unprecedented environment, we managed as a country to have security of supply when we had battles raged for every LNG cargo, and this is the footprint that we have in the green transition. No transition can be sustainable and viable unless it is socially fair and realistic. Thank you. Rector, what do you say? What is your opinion? If we're talking about wealth sources, well, I thought it was only for decor purposes here, but you now have the floor. Thank you. Regarding the Mediterranean, especially the southeastern Mediterranean, there are wealth sources which are untapped. We're only now starting tapping on them. Mr. Zervo said a few things, like, for instance, the wind potential, the wave potential. Of course, various issues can be raised here because we can talk about the climate potential, which is huge, but the issue is whether we can take advantage of it. I don't think that this discussion should be focused on the existence of wealth energy sources from the environment. These are for granted, but how we will tap on them. For instance, I keep hearing about the possibility of exploiting the hydrocarbons south of Crete, but nothing has been done so far. Of course, we can expect that tomorrow we will just install a pipe to extract oil. It takes for these things to come true. It takes time, decades, know-how. We shouldn't be over-optimistic or impatient. Well, we've got specifically energy sources, hydrocarbons, wind potential in the Eastern Mediterranean, although the wind potential in specific areas in Greece is exceptional, close to the quality of the wind potential in Norway, in Scotland, etc.
νομίζω ότι αυτά και φυσικά η ενέργεια από
And of course,
ήλιο.
energy,
Το θέμα είναι ότι
solar
πρέπει πάντοτε
energy.
κάποιος να
The
βρει,
thing is that one
να
has to
βρεθεί πάντοτε η βέλτιστη λύση, δηλαδή το
find the
κατάλληλο
optimum
μείγμα. Όλα
solution,
αυτά έχουν προβλήματα.
the
Παράδειγμα,
appropriate mix. All
δεν
this raises
μπορείς να
problems.
γεμίσεις τη
For
θάλασσα με
instance,
φωτοβολταϊκά, παρόλο που μπορεί να
you
υπάρχει
can't have
τεχνογνωσία για να φτιάξει
the
πλατφόρμες
entire
φωτοβολταϊκών.
sea
Δεν
area
μπορείς να
covered
γεμίσεις τη
with
στεριά με
offshore
φωτοβολταϊκά,
wind
παρόλο που υπάρχουν σχέδια ή έχουν κατατεθεί ιδέες στα
turbines. You
φωτοβολταϊκά να είναι
can't
πιο ψηλά,
cover the
ώστε να
entire land
επιτρέψουν και τα
with
φυτά να αναφύονται
solar
και να
parks
μην
because
επηρεάζεται η εκμετάλλευση της επιφάνειας του
you
εδάφους.
shouldn't affect
Αναφορικά
the
με
soil and the
το
farming.
αιωλικό δυναμικό. Δεν
Regarding
είναι
the
θέμα,
wind
το
power
σημαντικότερο θέμα
and
ειδικά
wind
στη Μεσόγειο
potential,
είναι το βάθος
the
του
key
νερού.
issue
Πώς
in
το
Mediterranean
εγκαταστάσεις.
is the depth
Θα
of the
πρέπει
water.
να
How
ληφθεί
can you
υπόψη, θα πρέπει να
install
ληφθεί
the wind
υπόψη το
turbines?
γεγονός ότι μια
It
τέτοια
needs to be
μηχανή θα
taken into
κινείται και θα
account.
παράγει
Such a machine will
ενέργεια.
move and generate
Αναφορικά με
energy. This needs to be taken into
με
account.
τους υδρογονάνθρακες
Regarding
νότια της
hydrocarbons,
Κρήτης, πρέπει να
south
λαμβάνουμε
of
υπόψη
Crete,
μας ότι
we need to
η
take into
Μεσόγειος
account
είναι
that
μια
the
πολύ βαθιά
Mediterranean is
θάλασσα.
a
Δεν είναι η
very
Βόρειος
deep
θάλασσα με
sea.
40
It's
μέτρα
not like the
δεσπόδευτο
North Sea with
και να
only
μην έχει
40
και
meter
μπορείς να
depth,
εκμεταλλευτείς τα πάντα
where
ή
you
τέλος
can
πάντων
exploit
μπορεί να
everything,
επιτευχθεί η μέγιστη εκμετάλλευση. Δεν
or
είναι
you can exploit
επομένως,
it to the
κατά την
most.
άποψή μου, θέμα της ύπαρξης των πλουτοπαραγωγικών
So for me,
πηγών.
it's not an issue of the
Το
existence
σημαντικότερο
of
ζήτημα
the
είναι οι
sources. The most
τρόποι
important issue is
εκμετάλλευσης
how
και φυσικά
you're going to
οικονομικής
take advantage of
εκμετάλλευσης.
these sources.
Ολοκληρώνοντας,
And concluding,
θέλω να επισημάνω το γεγονός ότι,
I'd like to
μάλλον
note
θέλω να
that,
επαναλάβω το γεγονός ότι
or
και
rather
πρέπει να είμαστε
reiterate that
απόλυτα
we should not
ανυπόμονοι
be
και ταυτόχρονα
impatient,
δεν πρέπει
and at the
να
same time,
δίνουμε βάση γενικά
we shouldn't
σε μη επεξεργασμένες ιδέες. Λέμε
believe
παραδείγματος χάρη θα
in
βάλουμε
raw ideas. Like we say, we keep
μηχανές
hearing that we'll have
για την παραγωγή ενέργειας από
machines
τον
for
άνεμο στις
the
βραχονησίδες. Σκέφτηκε
wind
κανείς
energy
ποτέ ότι αυτές θα
generation
μπορούν να διασυνδεθούν
on
αυτές
the
οι
rock
καλώδια.
islets. Does anybody thought that this needs to be interconnected via cables, for instance? That's what I have to say. Thank you. I would also like to thank for this opportunity to share a few thoughts in this Nisyros Dialogues. I'm very happy that I've managed to contribute to the creation and development of the Nisyros Dialogues. I'll try and say a few things because we're running out of time. A few things regarding the energy issue in the energy transition, and then comment a few things that I've heard today and yesterday. So we've got our effort to move towards a green energy landscape, stop the greenhouse gas emissions when we're using energy, and there are a lot of challenges here. My first comment is we saw a presentation of Mr. Zerefos regarding how we want to proceed with renewables. What we miss is that electricity is not the only source of energy we're using. Currently in Greece, more than half the energy used is oil, pure oil. Think of the cars that you drive. Some of you will have EVs, of course, but what do they, how are they fueled? How about the industry, heavy industry? How is it fueled? Electrification is at a very low rate. It's not just our households that use electricity. We use power in many expressions or in many activities. So we're doing well with electricity, or we could do better, in fact, because we still have problems. Electricity is key. The security of supply of energy, of electricity is key. So what happened a couple of months ago in Spain? 15 hours, the country was left in dark. It was in blackout. You remember what this means. Just think what this means. What you were in a lift. If you had a patient that needed support. Lots of other things. So we have got this transition where we want to include the renewables. We've got the energy mix. Last year accounted more than half of our energy generated from renewables. And we have got the traditional sources. Regarding energy security, we will be in need of traditional energy sources. Over the past week, in the daily operation of power generation, you will see 3 lignite plants, lignite-fired plants
το
were in
σύστημά μας δεν
operation.
μπορεί να
Why?
λειτουργήσει
Because
με
our
ευστάθεια
system
αν
cannot
δεν υπάρχουν
operate
αυτές οι
with
λιγνητικές
stability
μονάδες.
unless
Και
we
μάλιστα
have
τις
all these
λιγνητικές αυτές
lignite
μονάδες
fired
λέμε ότι του
plants. And
χρόνου θα
actually,
τους κλείσουμε. Είμαστε
these will be
πολύ
shut next
γαλαντόμοι.
year. We're very
Άλλες χώρες
optimistic, over
τις
optimistic.
κρατάνε και θα
Other
τις κρατήσουν και μέχρι
countries
το 40 και
keep
μέχρι το
them
50.
in operation
Έχουν
and will
δεσμευτεί
keep
ότι δεν
them
θα τις
until
καταργήσουν.
24 to
Εμείς είμαστε
2050.
γαλαντόμοι
We are
και
very
είμαστε γαλαντόμοι
optimistic
γιατί
and very
νοιαζόμαστε για τον
generous, and we're
πλανήτη.
generous because we're
Η
interested
Κίνα
in
και η
we
Ινδία
care for the
πέρσι,
planet. India and China
στοιχεία που
last year,
δημοσιευθήκαν από το Διεθνή Οργανισμό
and this is
Ενέργειας πριν από
data
ένα μήνα περίπου,
published by
έτσι,
the International Energy Agency a month
αδειοδότησαν
ago, licensed
200 πτολεμαΐδες.
200
Η πτολεμαΐδα είναι η πιο σύγχρονη
lignite
λιγνητική μονάδα που έχουμε σήμερα,
fuel plants,
την οποία η κυβέρνησή
like
μας
the
αποφάσισε
ones
να
in
κλείσει του χρόνου,
Ptolemais
παρότι
in
έχει
Greece.
λειτουργήσει μόνο ένα χρόνο.
Ptolemais is the most one of
Έτσι.
the
Θα σώσουμε τον πλανήτη εμείς την
high-tech
ίδια ώρα που οι Κινέζοι και οι
lignite-fired
Ινδοί
plants
σε ένα
in
χρόνο
the world,
αδειοδότησαν
and the
200
country and the
πτολεμαΐδες.
government
Αυτό
decided to
για
shut
να
it down
ξέρουμε
next
πού
year,
είμαστε.
whereas
Και να μην έχουμε την
China
έπαρση
and
ότι εμείς
India
θα σώσουμε
keep
τον πλανήτη.
licensing such
Δεν
plants, and
λέω
we shouldn't
αν
be so
μπορούμε να
arrogant
το
as to
κάνουμε.
think that we should
Μην γίνουμε όμως
save the planet. Of course, if we
Ισπανία
could, let's do
κάθε
it. If we
τόσο.
can, let's do it. But let's not end
Ένα
up
αυτό.
becoming
Δεύτερον,
Spain every now and then.
η αυτοδυναμία προφανώς
Second,
εξαρτάται από τις πηγές
self-reliance depends on
πλουτοπαραγωγικές
the
τις
wealth
δικές της έχει μια
sources
χώρα. Εμείς
of each country.
είχαμε το λιγνίτη που μας σήκωσε για
We
χρόνια.
had
Τον έχουμε ακόμα.
lignite that
Μπορούμε να
supported
τον
us has
χρησιμοποιήσουμε
supported us for many years. We
ελελογισμένα
can
και να τον
use it
κρατήσουμε για 200
reasonably
χρόνια ακόμα για να στηρίξει
and
το
keep it for
σύστημά μας
several
και να
years
το
in order to
στηρίξει
support our
μάλιστα
system
σε δύσκολες
and
στιγμές.
actually support in
Δεν είναι
difficult
κάθε
times.
μέρα όπως τις βλέπουμε τις μέρες αυτές που ξέρουμε εμείς τώρα. Το
Things are not every
2012
day is
το
the same.
Φλεβάρι,
In 2012, in February,
στην κυβέρνηση ήταν τότε ο κύριος Μανιάτης, εγώ
Mr.
ήμουν
Magnetis
γενικός
was
γραμματέας, είχαμε
in
μια
the
κρίση.
government back then. I
Δεν
was
μπορούσαμε να
secretary.
έχουμε
We had a
αέριο.
crisis.
Το τι
We
κάναμε
couldn't have
τότε για να
gas.
μπορέσουμε να μην γίνει αυτό
Now,
αισθητό, δεν είναι γνωστό βέβαια, γιατί όλοι
nobody knows how much we had to try in order for this not to be felt,
χρειάστηκε να
because there was
βάλουμε
no
πετρελαϊκές
disruption,
μονάδες
discrimination
μπροστά, χρειάστηκε
in
να
the
κλείσουμε τις
supply.
εξαγωγές μας
We
προς
had
τις γειτονικές
to
χώρες
stop
για να
our
μας εγκαλέσει η
exports
Ευρωπαϊκή
to
Ένωση γι'
neighboring
αυτό,
countries, and the
για να
European
μπορέσουμε
Union accused us
να
of this in
έχουμε,
order
να
to
μπορέσουμε
have
την τροφοδοσία, την
to
έλλειψη
safeguard the
φυσικού αερίου που
stability
είχαμε τότε
in
για
our
κάποιες
system
μέρες, μια
despite
εβδομάδα,
the
να θέλουμε να
shortage of
πληρώσουμε.
gas for a
Ασφάλεια
week.
τροφοδοσίας σημαίνει ότι όταν συμβαίνουν τέτοια
So
πράγματα μπορείς να τα
security of
αντιμετωπίσεις.
supply means that
Και
you can
για να
deal
μπορείς
with
να τα
such problems
αντιμετωπίσεις
when
πρέπει να έχεις
as they
και
occur,
δικές σου
and to be
πηγές.
able to deal
Δεν
with
τις
them, you need
πετάς
to have your
λοιπόν.
own
Λοιπόν,
sources.
υδρογονάνθρακες, οι δικοί μας.
Other
Είναι άλλη μια
hydrocarbons.
πλουτοπαραγωγική πηγή που
This is
μπορεί
another
να
source
διαθέτει
of
η χώρα μας.
wealth
Έχουμε πολύ ισχυρές
that
ενδείξεις
our country
ότι
has.
διαθέτουμε.
And we've
Και
got
όμως,
strong
όπως
indications
πάλι
that
το
we do
παίζουμε
have.
γαλαντόμοι.
Nonetheless,
Ο
we
Υπουργός
again
Εξωτερικών πριν από
play
μερικά χρόνια
generous.
είχε
The
δηλώσει ότι εμείς δεν
Minister
θα ποτέ
of
δεν
Foreign
θα
Affairs several years ago
βγάλουμε
said that we
υδρογονάνθρακες.
will never extract
Με την αλλαγή
these
στην Αμερική άλλαξε και η
oil,
οπτική που έχουμε για τον κόσμο και
hydrocarbons. Of
αποφασίσαμε
course, with
ότι
the change in
θα
the
βγάλουμε
administration in the
υδρογονάνθρακες.
US, we changed our views and we
Ξέρετε ότι η
decided that we're
κυβέρνηση
going to
έχει αλλάξει
extract
πολύ λίγη σε αυτό
hydrocarbons.
το θέμα.
You know that the
Έτσι.
government
Να
has
πω
changed
επίσης
its
να θυμίσω
opinions
αυτά που
quite
υπόθηκαν
several
χθες για
times
τους
on this issue.
υδρογονάνθρακες.
And let me recall what was said yesterday
Είχα
about
την τιμή να
hydrocarbons.
είμαι
I had
επικεφαλής
the
των
honor of being
επιτροπών που
head of the
ξεκίνησαν στην
committees
πράξη. Δεν
that
λέμε για τον νόμο μόνο
started
του
in
κ.
practice. I'm
Μανιάτη,
not talking about the
που
law, Mr.
επέτρεψε το να
Maniatis,
ξεκινήσουν όλα αυτά
who
οι ΑΟΣ
allowed
κλπ.
for all this
Τότε εμείς το κάναμε και
to
πράξη.
start,
Μέσα σε
like the
πολύ λίγο
exclusive
καιρό προκυρήσαμε
economic
διαγωνισμό,
zones, etc.
φέραμε εταιρεία,
Very
επιλέξαμε
shortly,
την νορβηγική
we
εταιρεία
announced a
PGS
call
που έκανε
and we
τις
chose
έρευνες των
PGS, the
σεισμικών.
Norwegian company that
Ιδίως τον
proceeded to
παρόδο ότι
the
αυτό έγινε από μια επιτροπή ανθρώπων που δεν
searches and
πληρωνόντουσαν
exploration,
έξτρα γι' αυτό,
and
ούτε
actually
εξωτερικούς συμβούλους,
the
ούτε τίποτα άλλο.
committee that did that
Έγιναν τα
didn't have any
σεισμικά.
consultants or any
Προκηρύξαμε
people
τον
on the
κύριε
on the
Μανιάτη, λέω
payroll.
με γιατί είχα βοηθήσει και εγώ τότε. Λοιπόν, προκηρύξαμε τον διαγωνισμό
We
Open Door,
announced the tender, the
τον
open door tender.
υλοποιήσαμε,
We
υπογράφτηκαν
implemented
συμβάσεις
it.
το
Contracts were
2014
signed in
σε
2014.
περιοχές για πρώτη φορά. Και όλα
In
αυτά
various areas for the
έγιναν
first time.
εκ του
And all
μηδενός
this
μέσα σε 3
occurred
χρόνια.
from scratch
Έχουν περάσει
in 3
11 από
years.
τότε. Ο κύριος Μανιάτης
It's
το είπε
been
χθες.
11 years since
Διαγωνισμός
then. Mr.
Open
Maniat
Door
said
δεν
so.
ξανάγινε.
There's
Υπήρξαν
never been an
ενδιαφερόμενοι που και
open
τότε
door
είχε έρθει
tender
η
since
ΕΝΕΛ
then.
και
There
κάναμε
have
και
been some
διαγωνισμό για την
interested
ΕΝΕΛ.
parties. There
Ανεξάρτητα
were,
από τον
NL
διαγωνισμό
came
Open
back
Door. Όπως
then,
ιδρυθεί
and
τώρα η Chevron, τότε είχε
we
έρθει η ΕΝΕΛ.
also,
Έτσι.
like,
Το λέω
NL
αυτό για
came
να
back
δείξω
then,
ότι
like
μπορούμε να
Chevron
κάνουμε
now.
πράγματα. Δεν είναι
And I'm saying this
απαραίτητα
because
πολλά τα
we can do
χρόνια.
things.
Πρίτανη, για να μπορέσουμε να
It's
υλοποιήσουμε τα
not been
πράγματα.
too long,
Όταν θέλουμε
Rector.
και όταν
When we want
ξέρουμε
and when
τι
we
θα
know
κάνουμε, μπορούμε. Και το
what
έχουμε
we want
αποδείξει.
to do, we can do it, and
Λοιπόν,
we've proved it.
δύο-τρεις κουβέντες τώρα για το πέρασμά μας
So, a few words
στις
about
ανανεώσιμες πηγές ενέργειας.
our
Αυτή τη
transition to
στιγμή έχουμε
renewables.
ανανεώσιμες
Right
πηγές ενέργειας
now,
που έχουν μια
we have got renewables
ονομαστική
that have got a nominal established, installed capacity, and I'm talking about electricity alone. Not, I'm not going to include all forms of energy, electricity. So installed capacity, which is 1.5 times higher what we absorb. Unfortunately, we have the generation, wind power generation, solar power generation, mostly solar power generation, but we don't have storage facilities. We don't have the means to store this energy in order to harness it. Although we keep hearing that there have been tenders that were cancelled and then re-announced, now they're currently extended. Zero storage capacity is installed. At the same time, we force producers to stop production in the afternoon hours. So we're throwing away the renewable energy. Again, we're being too generous. Just imagine that 10% of the generated renewable energy will go to waste. Last year was 3.5%. Now we've exceeded this 3.5% before summer has come. Now, transition is not easy. Security of supply is very important. We have to see it from various aspects. We have to take advantage of all the possibilities. And then we need to be on top of developments. We need to follow them closely. We need to want. We can if we want. A team of the NTUA 2 weeks ago was rewarded a couple of weeks ago in France because thanks to a wind turbine that they built, they got the first award. Congratulations. From the engineering School of Engineers of the National Technical University of Athens. I wasn't a member of that team. Another colleague was. But it's not just them. There are other teams that stand out and are rewarded as long as we show will. And I believe we can do it then. Certainly we can. Thank you, all three of you. You've got the scientific knowledge, but we don't have time. Thank you very much, all three of you. And before we move on to the next dialogue, we're going to watch a message from Mrs. Claire O'Neill, who is the former Minister of Climate and Clean Growth in the UK.
Hello, I'm Claire O'Neill. I'm the former Minister for Energy and Climate in the UK government, and I now sit on the boards of companies all around the world focused on the energy transition and financial services, and I work with companies large and small. I've been asked to say a few words for the Nisyros Dialogues on the current state of the world, especially as it relates to the current developments in energy and climate. And a key question for me is, how do we build resilience in our systems to deal with what is happening? Now, I've never had the pleasure of visiting your beautiful island, but to me, it's a bit of a metaphor for something that is for what is happening in the world. A volcanic island shaped by the collision of plates and ancient eruptions, and now standing resilient in the Aegean, independent but deeply connected with your neighbours in the Eastern Mediterranean. And if you like, the tectonic plates are currently colliding in the world. We have the atmosphere responding to the high levels of greenhouse gases with floods, heat waves, storms, violent reactions that are affecting all of us. We also have the emergence of a new economic and diplomatic world order with nation-first economic policies and diplomacy built very much on transactions. And energy security is emerging as a key weapon in this economic arsenal. And we see wars, cyber attacks, and supply chain constraints making us really realize the potential vulnerabilities in our energy system. Now, the region you're in, the Eastern Mediterranean, also sits at a crossroads of continents, cultures, and competing interests. Many parts of your nation in Greece are pushing back against the central government's net zero agenda, asking if the balance is right between renewable energy development and preservation of your beautiful natural environments. And of course, you're facing the absolute teeth of the climate change challenge. The Eastern Mediterranean is warming about 20% faster than the global average. And much of that stress is being expressed in water. local needs and tourism are stressing your cherished water supplies, and new technologies bring some of their own risks. In the broader region, we see Cyprus gas exploration disputes, Turkish and Greek maritime tensions, instabilities in Libya and Syria. These are not just geopolitical events, they are also climate and resource stories that are playing out today. And regardless of tensions, a secure, reliable, resilient energy system is not just a green target, it's a security imperative in an uncertain world. To me, being resilient doesn't just mean bouncing back after a problem. It means building systems that don't break down in the first place. And that can include decentralized and robust energy systems that provide firm power, even when we have shocks in supplies. It implies regional cooperation on energy interconnection, early warning systems for climate shocks, and a very clear-eyed approach for planning for the temperature and water stresses ahead. This is not the time for pretending the world is going to be different. We have to deal with temperature outcomes likely up to 3 degrees on average across the world, and a real sense that water scarcity will be a challenge that we must meet. But this decision-making and thinking is best done not just top-down, but also bottom-up. When we work with local communities on planning, communication, and decision-making, those outcomes are far more likely to be resilient and to last. And let me finish with a request for you. No matter the size of your island or your city or your country or your company, I think this is the time for courageous leadership. In today's uncertain times, it's easy to dismiss decarbonisation as a bit of a distraction, but it is not. The looming heat and water stresses make it an imperative for us to do things differently and to build resilient systems for the future. And islands like yours with courageous leadership can become beacons around the world, yes, small in size, but able to stand up and absorb the shocks and emerge stronger, and in doing so, show the others around the world how to respond. I hope that this year's dialogues help to build that cooperation and courage for the future, and I wish you very productive and enjoyable conversations, and I wish I could be with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now come to our last dialogue. Manolis Kostidis will dialogue with Mr. Kostas Bakogiannis and Marios Daphnomilis.
Για να μην χάνουμε ώρα, γιατί έχουμε καθυστερήσει.
We are quite late, so let me start, Mr. Daphnomilis, by expressing my concern. Every time I visit Greece, you've been mayor and head of the region, and I believe you can answer my question. What I realize, mainly in Athens and in some municipalities, bearing in mind the tourist development, is that I see the old condos with gardens or new condos that have turned into parking lots. We've had an incredible tourist development. Our islands and Athens are drowning. Of course, things are a bit different here in Nisyros. Where does our future lie? Will we move to zero footprint with reinforced concrete? Will we let our islands drown? What is your proposal? Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Michalos, for hosting us in this incredible location. The only thing that separates us from dinner is this panel. So let's move to Athens in 2030. 2040, Athens will be unbearable. Our children will abandon it. Athens will be in a city for tourists and rich people. What changes today? Let's come to our times. So what changes? Every year we add 100,000 vehicles, and every year we add 7.5 thousand new beds in Airbnbs and hotels. All the rest remain the same. If we do not start discussing seriously how we can proceed to major changes, we will encounter a very serious problem. So if you are asking for my proposal, there are three axes of sustainable mobility. The greatest enemy of Athens is the vehicle. The cities have been planned during the 20th century on the basis of vehicles. During the 21st century, they should be built around human beings. The pedestrians, we have the metro advances very slowly. And just to give you an idea on new buses, fortunately, we have new buses, but in reality, we do not add new buses. We remove or withdraw some old buses. We used to have 1,000 buses in 1982. No progress. Second, the three areas. We are the most densely populated area of Europe after Paris, the most densely populated. So we should release green spaces. We should take decisions. 70% of the public spaces, of the public areas of the city is occupied by parked cars. They spend most of the hours parked. This means less playgrounds, less room for pedestrians. And the third axis, mixed uses. We all love tourism. Tourism means jobs, but it cannot be a monoculture in the center. Athens cannot become a tourist Disneyland and change and lose its soul. This is the worst thing might happen if we lose our particularity and our identity. Just a question. If somebody, if a politician implements what you are saying, he will lose the elections. Well, this reminds me of something. Mr. Magna, how all this is going to be implemented? Since Mr. Magnatis is here, and we have all quoted him, let's see what this means. Somebody might start something seriously, then a vacuum might follow. As Mr. Papastavru said, somebody might take the relay. This is a whole procedure which goes beyond the ballot boxes. Mr. Naflominis, you talked about energy policies. We have Europe, which supports green energy. On the other hand, we have the United States, which say, drill, baby, drill. We have China with carbon that makes investments in energy. There is an imbalance cost-wise, while on the other hand, there are other countries and other continents which operate in a different manner. How much will this cost? Let me help in my turn Mr. Michalos for his invitation and for his hospitality in the beautiful island of Nisyros. I will be very brief. The Trump election is not only a political event. It concerns issues that go beyond society and economy, and it has to do with the protection of the environment and the climate crisis. This is what we are asked to say. What is clear that when the peak, the top collapses, the basis takes over. This is exactly what I mean, but the initiatives we have to take. When the dialogue stops at top levels for various reasons, we are asked to play the role of the go-between and the role of the manager of the problem. As a result, your question, when we have a different approach, I would put it in another way. We change a top-down approach and we activate a bottom-up. This is the voice of those that will never stop producing or acting in the way they have led. Why I'm saying this? The governments have a specific period of time or presence. Mr. Bakoyannis talked about this relay race. During certain periods, we'll have acceleration, then loosening of the various initiatives or periods of change of direction. But sooner or later, we will come back to another stage. Would Trump lend an ear to you? This is the most common question. I agree that we will have to make steps backwards in order to make steps forwards. What is important is that we do not stop. This year, I'm participating to an American foundation. Right from the beginning, it was made clear that we will have some difficulties in the financing of some activities. It was also made clear that we will not stop, we continue acting and materializing the policies that we want so that they will be ready. What is missing? Financing. All the rest is there. So we continue, we will go on, and I believe that our concern is how, acting in parallel, we should be ready as an organized society and as local authorities to be ready for the day after. Let me add something, because I believe this is a very important point. Let me quote an example from Brussels, where I participated in the Commission of the Regions. We are preparing for Belém, for COP30. It is quite clear that the political climate is negative, but Trump can make a miracle, make miracle. We do not feel that a new European patriotism is in front of us. What happens now level? We establish contact with similar associations all over the world. Some days ago, I was talking with the Municipalities Association of Brazil or with Asian countries, and what we are trying to achieve so that we will be able to exert pressures and organize ourselves, thus creating a political dynamism that might enable us to reach some results. We have seen something similar in the recent COP on biodiversity, though the stage was missing. Many important steps have been made. Mr. Bakoyannis mentioned what we were thinking about. This is an answer of what happens when the political will withdraws. Other mechanisms get activated. There is no monopoly here. This is the answer given by the region, etc. Thank you very much. Another discussion conducted in tourism on environment and over tourism. We are not an industrial country, so do not have a major problem with the industry. On the other hand, there are many those that complain for over-tourism, but of course, tourism is a source of revenue. In order to become richer, we need the tourism. Since we are in Nisyros, we might say that we could continue building more and more hotels and dwelling. So how can we become richer and how, without this having an impact on our islands or the environment? This is an artificial dilemma. We cannot be asked to make a choice because the question is wrong. It is not a question of over tourism. It's a question of lack of planning and infrastructures. It was said quite rightly yesterday that as a country, for 10 or 15 years, we have not made an urban planning on tourism. This is very important because it has to do with what we will leave for our children. It is quite true that in Athens we have faced a lot of issues, and our life in Athens is very difficult. We can take direct decisions. Tourist buses. Sorry, but I have to be very specific. Tourist buses. They create an enormous accumulation of gases in the center. They might park in another area and tourists might get the metro. This is a very good proposal. Unfortunately, I cannot implement it, but this can be done directly. Let me quote you another example. Loading and unloading timetable. We do not have a timetable. At 11 o'clock in the morning, you can have a lorry entering the country. We might agree with 9 to 21, which is valid but never implemented. Third example, the center cannot close down for a meeting, for a rally, for a concert. The life of those that work and live in Athens cannot turn into a real hell. Would you like to add something? This might constitute a seed for our future dialogue. The answer to this pseudo dilemma is how you will be, whether you will be wealthy or rich. We cannot define wealth putting together the two concepts of wealth and riches. We should be wealthy as to the quality of life, the local communities, the efforts we make to approach the local communities. Only in such a way we will approach wealth. I believe. Okay, we're fine without time. Thank you very much. 20 seconds earlier than scheduled.
Ευχαριστούμε. Εδώ ολοκληρώθηκε
Thank you very much. This is the end of the Nisyros dialogue here in front of the volcano. Thank you very much, Mr. Michalos, for giving us the opportunity to be here. Would you like to say something? Okay, no, later. So let's meet for dinner.